Chapter 906. In the eyes of people like Tanaka Misa, such a big shot who could shake the cultivation world of China and Japan couldn't even protect a small tea house and had been sealed by a group of the most ordinary law enforcers. If this happened in Japan, it would be a big deal. Isi Chiyun, who was standing to one side, suddenly scolded her in a low voice, "Misa." Tanaka Misa snorted inwardly, turned her head, and said in Japanese, "Isn't it? Chiyun, if this reincarnated Wisdom King is really as powerful as you say, why can't he even protect a tea house?" Isi Chiyun also felt a little strange, but she was a little displeased. This is China, not Japan. Don't be rude. Only then did Tanaka Misa stop talking, but she just muttered in her heart with a disapproving look on her face. At this time, Isi Chiyun turned to Shenguang and said, "Shenguang Jun, what should we do now?" Isi Shenguang hadn't expected that they would encounter such a thing on this trip to China to worship the immovable Wisdom King. He pondered for a while and said, "It's not good for us to interfere in the internal affairs of China. However, we have to find Wisdom King as soon as possible and tell him about our affairs and what happened here as soon as possible." Isi Chiyun nodded gently and said, "That's right, but where could Li Yundong be?" Shenguang thought for a moment and said, "Find him. We must find him." After that, he looked around and said with a sigh, "I didn't expect Wisdom King to be in such trouble. He must be in a very difficult and dangerous situation now." Just as the cultivators of various sects in Japan began to launch their own efforts to find Li Yundong's whereabouts, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao had already appeared in another place. The moment Zhou Qin got into the black hole, she felt that she was wrapped in a huge mass of energy. It was dark all around her, as if she was in the vast ocean, being thrown up by the stormy waves and then falling heavily. After an unknown period of time, Zhou Qin suddenly felt that her surroundings were bright and dazzling. When she squinted and slowly opened her eyes again, she found herself in a strange place. He was no longer in a sealed cave, nor was he in a bustling city. Instead, he was in a lush forest. The forest was extremely dense. At first glance, Zhou Qin felt as if she was in a green sea. The shortest tree was more than 10 meters high. It was as if she had returned to the primeval forest. Under the towering trees, there were flowers and grasses of different colors. She couldn't even name them. Zhou Qin looked around in bewilderment and couldn't help shouting, "Master! Master, where are you?" But after shouting for a while, he could only hear the echoes of his voice echoing throughout the empty valley. Only the mountain birds were startled, but there was no response at all. She shouted for a while, then shouted reluctantly, "Li Yundong! Li Yundong!" There was an immediate response. A voice came from the other side of the valley. "Zhou Qin? Zhou Qin, is that you?" Zhou Qin found the voice familiar. She was shocked and said, "Hongling? Where are you?" Sure enough, a figure flew up from the opposite mountain ridge. She was dressed in a long red robe, and her black hair was tied in a high ponytail, revealing a full and bright forehead. She had a pretty and happy face. Who else could it be but Ruan Hongling? Zhou Qin immediately rose into the air and flew into the air. She was surprised and reproachful as she said, "Why are you here?" Ruan Hongling snorted and said angrily, "Why? Do you think that my cultivation is low and will cause you trouble and hold you back?" Zhou Qin sighed and said, "Even Master Wuhua doesn't know where this spirit space is. I'm afraid that even Master is in danger, let alone us. I'm afraid that if I get you into trouble, I won't be able to explain it to Ziyuan." Ruan Hongling rolled her eyes, then smiled and said carelessly, "Since we're here, let's take it easy. Don't worry, it's okay. Aren't we safe now? Besides, you are now a lightning retribution master. Although my strength is not good, I have powerful magical weapons to protect myself. Don't worry, I won't hold you back. Besides, one more person means one more helper and one more pair of eyes, doesn't it?" Zhou Qin said helplessly, "What else can I say? Do you want me to send you back?" As she said this, Ruan Hongling was suddenly shocked and blurted out, "Ah yes, how do you think we can go back?" Zhou Qin was stunned when she heard this, then shook her head and said, "I don't know. Don't think about it now. Let's find Master first. Maybe if we find him, we'll know how to go back." Ruan Hongling muttered in a low voice, "If he knows how to go back, why didn't he go back earlier?" Her words made Zhou Qin's heart sink, but then she said, "Maybe he is looking for the mystical silver fox?" Ruan Hongling couldn't help but be a little worried. She looked around, only to see the green mountains and the vast sea of green trees. She couldn't see the end at a glance, and she didn't know where they were. It was more difficult to find a person than to find a needle in a haystack. Ruan Hongling sighed and said, "Alas, there are only two of us. How can we find him? Where can we start?" Before she could finish her words, she suddenly heard a voice coming from the valley. "Eldest Xueqi, eldest Xueqi. Hongling, Xueqi Hongling." The voice was clear and familiar, and the pronunciation was a little strange. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling looked at each other and shouted in unison, "Lin Miao? You're here too?" They looked in the direction of the voice and saw a figure waving at them from the edge of the cliff in the dense jungle. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling immediately flew over. Zhou Qin said in shock, "Lin Miao, are you crazy? You haven't even reached the Zhuji phase yet. Why are you here?" Lin Miao looked a little embarrassed. She said with grievance, "How would I know? I just thought that the colorful divine light was very beautiful, so I reached out and touched it. When I opened my eyes again, I was already here." Zhou Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She stamped her feet and said, "Alas, what do you want me to say?" Ruan Hongling chuckled and said, "Well, there's one more person to help us look for him. Hey, Lin Miao, the three of us will take turns shouting. Whoever gets tired can take a break. What do you think?" How could Lin Miao say no? She glanced at Zhou Qin carefully and said, "Eldest Xueqi, I can also help you look for him. Don't be angry." Zhou Qin sighed and said, "Forget it. Anyway, we're here. Let's hurry up and find him." The three of them discussed for a while, and then Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling flew in the air with Lin Miao, shouting and looking for him. However, there were mountains everywhere. They didn't know how long they had been flying before they reached a flat ground. The three of them shouted for a long time, but they didn't even see a ghost, let alone a figure. At this time, they landed on the ground. Even though Zhou Qin's cultivation was relatively high, her mouth was a little dry. She looked around and couldn't help but feel at a loss. In such a big and strange world, where could they find him? Although Ruan Hongling's cultivation was higher than Lin Miao's among them, her foundation was the worst. She was so tired that she was panting like a dog. She put her hands on her knees and said, "Zhou Qin, take a rest. I'm so tired. My throat is sore from shouting." Lin Miao looked around, only to see that there was no village or shop in front of them. Behind them was a rolling mountain range, but in the distance was a boundless plain. She really didn't know where the end was. Lin Miao was secretly worried. After looking around carefully, she suddenly pointed to the ground and said, "Look." Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling looked down and saw Lin Miao pointing to a wheel mark on the ground. Ruan Hongling exclaimed, "There's a wheel mark? But this mark looks like a bicycle?" As she said this, she squatted on the ground and carefully looked at the lines on it. Then she raised her head and said strangely, "No, the tires of a bicycle have patterns. This one is neat and smooth like." At this time, Zhou Qin said, "Like the wheel mark of an ox cart or a carriage." Ruan Hongling hurriedly said, "Yes, no matter what kind of car it is, there is a wheel mark, which means that there is someone. Let's follow this wheel mark all the way. I'm sure we can find him. Once we find him, we can ask about his whereabouts." Zhou Qin couldn't help showing a happy expression and praised, "Yes, what you said makes sense." Lin Miao also said happily, "Then let's hurry up." The three women's spirits were roused, and they immediately pulled themselves together, following the wheel marks to chase after it. They chased all the way, but they didn't know how long they had been chasing. They only felt that when the sun was burning, they were a little exhausted. Even Zhou Qin, who had always been mentally tough, couldn't bear it anymore. When she was about to give up, she suddenly saw a small black spot in the distance. Zhou Qin looked over and saw that the black spot looked like a city. She was overjoyed and quickly said, "Come on, look over there." Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao looked up and were overjoyed. They gathered all their remaining strength and rushed straight to the place where the city was. At this time, they seemed to be very close, but they had been flying for a long time. When they landed and walked all the way to the foot of the city, they were suddenly stunned. In front of them was an incomparably huge and majestic city. The city walls were more than 50 meters tall, and the city walls stretched out in all directions, as if they were going to extend to the end of the world. On the east side of the city walls, There were 9 huge arches. The one in the middle was the largest, more than 10 meters tall, and wide enough for 10 horses to pass through at the same time. At the entrance of the city stood a towering stone statue, more than 30 meters tall. This stone statue was a scene of a tall and sturdy man fighting barehanded with a lion and a fierce tiger. The scene was very lifelike, and it looked as if it was alive. Xueqi walked to the city gate and saw that there were people coming and going everywhere. These people were wearing very simple linen clothes, but they were dressed like ancient people. Some were riding ox carts, some were riding carriages, and some were riding some strange beasts that she couldn't tell the name of. These people gathered together like a trickle, flowing from all directions into this majestic city. Although she was a strange woman with high cultivation, standing in front of this majestic city, she suddenly felt that she was as small as an ant. However, this was not what shocked her the most. What stunned her, Wan Hongling, and Lin Miao the most was that there were 2 ancient characters written on the gate plate of this tall and majestic city, which read, Saga. There was still one more chapter in the afternoon or evening, but it should be in the afternoon. Chapter 907. Xueqi and Ruan Hongling stood at the foot of Saga city in a daze. They rubbed their eyes hard and said in unison, Saga? Saga, the capital of the Shang dynasty? Xueqi stood there in a daze, her mouth opened so wide that her fist could be stuffed in. Lin Miao, who was beside her, also stammered, We came to 3,000 years ago? Although Xueqi and Ruan Hongling felt that it was absurd, Ruan Hongling soon reacted. She clapped her hands and said, Oh, I know. The azure glass mirror has the ability to penetrate time and space, and the purple gold Luo Yu Pan has the ability to set up parallel worlds. Did these 2 powerful magical weapons bring us to the Shang dynasty 3,000 years ago? Lin Miao, who was standing to one side, asked in a daze. But why is it not the Xia dynasty, the Zhou dynasty, or any other dynasty, but the Shang dynasty? Xueqi and Ruan Hongling looked at each other. The 2 of them suddenly gasped at Lin Miao's question. Xueqi couldn't help but say in a cold voice, Could it be, because of Su Daji? Su Daji was a household name in China. Even a half-baked person like Lin Miao knew her name. Lin Miao was shocked and cried out involuntarily, Ah? Su Daji? Is she the 9-tailed celestial fox? What's her relationship with the mystical silver fox? The few of them looked at each other and secretly felt that it was possible. Otherwise, why did they have to come to this era? In the eyes of cultivators, although reincarnation was mysterious and magical, it was not something unacceptable. Regardless of whether it was Taoism or Buddhism, they all believed that reincarnation existed. Bubble. Book. However, Taoists said that reincarnation was ascension, corpse disintegration, and soldier's disintegration. The most famous of them was the 5th ancestor of Zen in China. He was a Taoist priest when he was alive, but after cultivating to a certain extent, he felt that he could no longer cultivate. He had reached a bottleneck, so he turned to Buddhism for help. At this time, the 5th patriarch Hong Ren found the 4th patriarch of the Zen sect, Dao Xin, and said that he wanted to become his disciple. But Dao Xin thought that Hong Ren was too old, an old man with a white beard, so he said to him, You are too old, I can't teach you. Therefore, 5th ancestor Hong Ren immediately disintegrated in front of Dao Xin. After a few years, he reincarnated into a little baby and came to find 4th ancestor Dao Xin, saying that he had become younger and that he could teach him now. In addition, the earliest cultivator, Peng Zhu, and the founder of the Wudong sect, Zhang Sanfeng, had lived for 800 years and lived through the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. People had also seen traces of him during the spring and autumn period. The other was born during the southern Song dynasty and lived through the Yuan and Ming dynasties, living for more than 400 years. In the eyes of ordinary people, these 2 people were longevity stars who were good at maintaining good health. But in fact, cultivators themselves knew that these 2 people must have been dead many times, or they had been reincarnated several times. Otherwise, any tangible matter in the world would never be destroyed, and the human body was no exception. The cultivators of both Buddhism and Taoism cultivated the spirit, and the body was just a carrier. In the world, there was only an indestructible yang spirit Jinshan, and there was no immortal body. As the saying goes, everyone has died since ancient times. These were all famous cases recorded in the history of Buddhism and Taoism. Xueqi and Ruan Hongling naturally knew about them, so they only expressed shock at the beginning when this thing suddenly appeared 3,000 years ago, but they soon came to their senses. They just thought about the relationship between the mystical silver fox and Su Daji in their hearts. Xueqi couldn't help looking up at Zhaoga City. It seemed that there was a beautiful and strange figure hidden behind the tall city wall. The power left by the mystical silver fox in Su Yi seemed to be still vivid in her mind. Xueqi thought for a moment and said, "Anyway, let's find a way to find Master first." Ruan Hongling nodded and said, "That's right. It's a pity that I don't know what era it is now." As she spoke, she saw an old man in a coarse shirt passing by. She grabbed the old man and asked, "Old man, may I ask you, what year is it now? How many years has King Zhou been in power?" Ruan Hongling knew that the capital of the Shang dynasty, Zhaoga, was in the period of King Zhou of Shang. This city was called Zhaoga, so the king in power at this time must be King Zhou, but she didn't know if Daji had entered the palace. When the old man was pulled by her, he just looked at them strangely, but as soon as he heard the word King Zhou, his face suddenly changed, as if he had seen a ghost. He broke free from her hand, turned around and fled into the city. As the old man ran, he turned his head to look at them, as if he was afraid that they would run away. Ruan Hongling looked at the old man in confusion and shouted, "Hey, why are you running?" As she said this, she turned her head and said to Xueqi in confusion, "Xueqi, did we scare him away because our clothes were too strange?" Xueqi frowned slightly and felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what was wrong, so she said, "It's possible. Who knows what people in this dynasty talk like?" While the two of them were guessing suspiciously, Lin Miao, who was beside them, suddenly pointed to the city gate and said, "Look." Xueqi and Ruan Hongling looked in the direction of her finger, only to see the old man running all the way to the guards at the gate, pointing at them while looking at them. Lin Miao said worriedly, "Did this person go to the police?" Ruan Hongling laughed and said, "There are no police in this era. Call the police? It's okay. Maybe he saw that we were dressed strangely, so he came up to ask." As soon as she finished speaking, a group of soldiers walked out of the door. They wore bronze armor and held bronze spears in their hands. The person in the lead wore a bronze helmet and held a 3-foot-long bronze sword. He was obviously the leader of the group. The man was tall and burly. He came to Xueqi, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao, pointed at the three of them, and shouted, "Arrest these rebels." His accent was a little strange, with a slight Hunan accent, but Xueqi, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao all understood it. The two of them were slightly shocked, and Lin Miao asked in confusion, "GFA? Is it King Wen of Zhou?" Xueqi turned to look at her and said with a wry smile, "You've read a lot of books." "Yes, it's King Wen of Zhou. If I'm not mistaken, King Wen of Zhou should have rebelled by now." Ruan Hongling also said curiously, "Why are they so sure that we are Ji Chang's party? I don't even know what Ji Chang looks like. Isn't he the biggest monster in the world?" When the leader of the guard saw the three of them chattering, as if they didn't take him seriously at all, he immediately became furious and shouted to his subordinates, "Take them down." These guards immediately surrounded Xueqi and the other two. Although it was a little inexplicable, Xueqi was skilled and bold. Relying on her high cultivation, she didn't take these people seriously. In addition, they found that she had come to the last years of the Shang dynasty through the glass mirror and the purple gold Luoyu plate, so they were more curious. Their previous nervousness and worry had been diluted a lot. Ruan Hongling also knew that these soldiers did not pose a threat to them, so she said with a smile, "Why are you so fierce? We are not Ji Chang's party. Hey, is King Zhou still here? If he is, take us to see him." The leader of the guards flew into a rage. "How dare you say that you are not Ji Chang's traitor? Catch them and cut them into pieces." The soldiers shouted in unison and stabbed at Xueqi, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao with their spears. Xueqi frowned and was about to make a move when she saw Ruan Hongling snort. A red light flashed beside her and swept across the copper spears in the hands of these soldiers like lightning. Suddenly, with a cracking sound, the copper spears were all cut off by Ruan Hongling's powerful magical weapon. Ruan Hongling's powerful magical weapon was similar to Zi Yuan's, but it was a reduced version. Not only was it smaller, but it was also square, like a small and exquisite handkerchief. These soldiers were shocked when their weapons were cut off by the red caltrip handkerchief. They all retreated in unison. Ruan Hongling smiled proudly and said, "How about it? Do you still want to take us back? Hey, take us to King Zhou obediently." The leader of the guards was shocked and couldn't help but take a step back. He shouted at Yuan Hongling fiercely, "Which sect are you from? How dare you make an enemy of my king? Aren't you afraid that your body and soul will be destroyed?" Yuan Hongling looked up to the sky and laughed. "You scared me to death. If you have the ability, come at me." Xueqi said in a low voice, "Hey, aren't you being too arrogant?" Yuan Hongling tilted her head slightly, chuckled and said, "I have my own brilliant plan. Don't worry." Xueqi thought for a moment and asked, "Do you want to make a big deal out of this so that Master will notice it?" Yuan Hongling smiled and said, "You are indeed the famous human immortal, Zhenren Zhou. You are amazing. You know what I am thinking." Xueqi smiled and said, "That's a good idea, but..." Before she could finish her words, she saw the soldiers retreat like a tide. Even the people at the city gate had left. She was slightly stunned. Just as she felt that something was wrong, she saw many people suddenly fly out of the city. Each of them was dressed in strange clothes and holding various powerful magical weapons. The leader was dressed in a white silk robe, with one arm exposed. He was holding a golden iron whip in his hand. There was an angry round eye between his eyebrows, which was emitting 3 feet of divine light. He looked majestic and powerful. Xueqi looked over and saw that the leader was shrouded in an extremely strong force. Although she was a master of thunder retribution, when this person's eyes swept over her, she immediately felt the hair all over her body stand on end, and a chill ran down her spine. Although Yuan Hongling's cultivation was not high, she was also a knowledgeable person. She looked at this group of people with her mouth agape and tongue tied. She saw that the leader's cultivation was extremely high, even comparable to Li Yundong's. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded and said, "No way. This is a master at the 9th level of heaven." But this was not the end. Before Yuan Hongling could react, she saw another 100 people flying up from behind these people, all of them surrounded by a layer of golden light. Yuan Hongling was scared silly. Oh my god, are they all golden bodies? When did the golden body become so worthless? Xueqi was also so shocked that her face turned ashen. She didn't even know how to speak. When she met a great master at the level of thunder retribution, she still dared to go forward and fight. But this time, a master at the 9th level of heaven came down, and another 6 masters of thunder retribution came, followed by more than 100 golden body fighters. How could they fight? Were they courting death? Even the reincarnation of Auspicious Sky couldn't withstand the siege of so many people. Not to mention the reincarnation of Auspicious Sky. Even the mystical silver fox couldn't withstand it. Lin Miao's face was as white as paper. He said, "It's over. I didn't expect that I would die 3,000 years ago. I wonder if anyone will be able to find my relics after 3,000 years. At this moment, the 3 of them didn't even have the consciousness to resist. They were ready to be captured, but at this moment, a figure flashed to their side, and a familiar voice shouted, "3 idiots, hurry up and leave." Chapter 908. When Xueqi heard this voice, she was overjoyed. She was very familiar with this voice, which made her worried. She immediately shouted, "Master." When Yuan Hongling and Lin Miao saw Li Yundong appear beside them in an instant, they were both overjoyed. Lin Miao said loudly, "Master, we finally found you." Yuan Hongling laughed and said, "You came at the right time. Let's teach these guys a lesson together." Li Yundong glared at her angrily and grabbed her and Lin Miao in his arms. After saying this, he turned around and ran away. Xueqi run. In Xueqi's impression, she had never seen Li Yundong turn around and run away when he met an enemy. Especially now that he had obtained the real body of Wisdom King. His strength was incredibly strong, but he didn't even fight. Xueqi was stunned. What's going on? Xueqi was stunned for a moment and didn't react. At this time, Su Chan's figure also appeared out of thin air and answered crisply. Her face was full of anxiety. She pulled Xueqi up and said, "Sister Xueqi, don't stay here. Let's go. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." Xueqi was pulled by her and flew more than 10 meters away in the blink of an eye. As soon as she left the ground, she saw the golden iron whip in the hand of the man with another eye between his eyebrows fall with a bang, and in an instant, the ground sank deeply. This happened suddenly and without warning. 1 second, the golden whip was still in the man's hand, and the next second, it had already smashed in the place where she had been. If Su Chan hadn't pulled her, she would have been smashed into meat paste. Zhou Qin's body shook and she cried out in horror. Who is this person? What kind of powerful magical weapon is this? It's amazing. Su Chan didn't have time to say anything more to her. She just gritted her teeth and chased after Li Yundong's figure like crazy. After they flew more than 100 miles in one breath, the people behind them gave up the chase. The man with the golden whip snorted angrily and took the lead to fly back. Li Yundong didn't dare to be careless. He held Wan Hongling and Lin Miao under his armpits and flew for more than 100 miles. Then he stopped and shouted angrily with lingering fear. Why are you guys here? Why are you so arrogant? Do you know where this is and what era it is? Do you want to die? Wan Hongling's face and ears turned red as she struggled with all her might. She didn't know if it was because her blood was not flowing smoothly because of Li Yundong's arm, or because she was angry out of humiliation. She shouted, "Put me down!" Only then did Li Yunyang loosen his grip. Wan Hongling and Lin Miao cried out at the same time and fell to the ground. Wan Hongling jumped up and said angrily with her hands on her hips, "Hey, the three of us risked our lives to find you. It's okay that you didn't say a word of thanks when you saw us, but you even scolded us." Are you kidding me? Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who told you to come to me? Isn't this just adding 1 yuan? Wan Hongling remembered that her Xueqi had been so worried about Li Yundong, and that she had come to this inexplicable 3,000 years ago to save him, but this bastard didn't appreciate it at all. She was furious. Wan Hongling wiped her eyes and said angrily, all right, we're useless. We'll help you. You're very capable. You don't need others to help you. As she said this, she said to Lin Miao, who had gotten up and was patting the dust off his body, "Hey, Lin Miao, let's go. Let's go back. Some people here don't need us." Lin Miao raised his head blankly. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Su Chan, who had been watching Wan Hongling and Li Yundong quarreling, didn't know how to persuade them. But at this time, Lin Miao, who was caught in the middle, pretended to be stupid, suddenly made her laugh. Lin Miao was very good at Chinese. How could he not understand at this time? Wan Hongling was exasperated. Lin Miao, why are you pretending? Don't you understand what I said? Lin Miao smiled embarrassedly and said, I just fell and was in a daze. I didn't hear you. What did you say just now? Wan Hongling stamped her feet and said, well, you can't get along with me either. You have a different mind. If you don't go, I'll go. After that, she angrily stomped her feet, turned around, and left. Li Yundong looked at her back and laughed angrily. He shouted, hey, where are you going? Do you know how to go back? Wan Hongling stopped in her tracks and immediately turned her head angrily. It's none of your business. Weren't you very fierce just now? How could we be idiots? Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You still say you're not? I think all three of you are. You called their King Zhou in front of the guards. He has a name. Dixian. He's not called King Zhou. This is another name given by King Wen of Zhou and Ji Chong in order to slander King Zhou. It's just like how Emperor Yongzheng called his younger brothers Akaina and Saxiai in anger. Wan Hongling was stunned again. She said unconvinced, how would I know that King Wen of Zhou had already rebelled at this time? The two of them quarreled fiercely. At this time, Zhou Qin couldn't help but stand up and say, okay, don't be angry. Master is also worried about our safety. We'll be there soon. As she said this, she walked over and took Wan Hongling's hand. Don't be angry. I think Master is afraid that if something happens to you, he won't be able to help Zi Yuan. As she said this, she turned to Li Yundong and said with a smile, isn't that right, Master? As she spoke, she winked at Li Yundong. However, Wan Hongling didn't buy it. She sneered and said, come on, don't talk about it. You're the same as my Xueqi. You're all different. Humph, you weren't as powerful as me before, but now you're powerful enough to show off. Her words were unforgiving, but in the end, she didn't take another step forward. Wan Hongling also knew that if she got separated from Li Yundong and the others in this unfamiliar place, she would probably stay in this damn place for the rest of her life and never be able to go back. However, Wan Hongling had always been sharp-tongued. Although she admitted defeat in her heart, she refused to admit defeat verbally. Li Yundong also knew her temper, so he smiled bitterly and said, "Okay, it's all my fault, okay?" Ruan Hongling had been ridiculed by him. Li Yundong had no choice but to turn his face and say helplessly to Zhou Qin, "Why did you think of coming here? How did you get here?" Zhou Qin looked at Li Yundong fixedly and said, "Master, you and Su Chan suddenly disappeared. Do you know how worried Zi Yuan and I were? We thought you had." As she said this, her voice trembled slightly, but she couldn't continue. Su Chan, who was standing to one side, also tried to persuade him. "Yundong, they have good intentions. Don't blame them. There is strength in numbers. If we work together, we might be more powerful." Li Yundong glared at her and said, "More powerful? Then why did we run just now?" When Su Chan saw that Li Yundong was speaking softly to Ruan Hongling and Zhou Qin, she immediately pouted and muttered in a low voice, "You're so annoying. You only know how to be fierce to me." Li Yundong ignored her little girl's thoughts. He turned his head and said loudly to Zhou Qin, "Do you know who the man with the golden whip just now was?" His loud voice seemed to be directed at Zhou Qin, but in fact, it was for Ruan Hongling, who was next to him. Zhou Qin naturally knew and asked cooperatively, "Who is that person?" Although Ruan Hongling was indignant, she also pricked up her ears curiously. Li Yundong looked at Zhou Qin speechlessly and said, "Grand Tutor One, this person is Grand Tutor One." Zhou Qin was shocked. Grand Tutor One? Is Grand Tutor One so powerful? At this time, Ruan Hongling had no time to be at odds with Li Yundong. She said in surprise, "Then is he the legendary Golden Whip of God?" Li Yundong nodded. Grand Tutor One is a great master who is only one step away from becoming a golden immortal. If I fight with him alone, I only have a 50% chance of winning. Don't you see that he has so many powerful helpers behind him? Moreover, do you know how many masters there are in Xiaoga City? Moreover, do you know that sect leader Tong Tian, heavenly primogenitor, and Taoist Juanti are all watching from the side?" Zhou Qin and Lin Miao listened with their eyes wide open. They didn't feel very shocked, but Ruan Hongling, an inner disciple of an orthodox cultivator, was so shocked that her mouth was wide open. "Tong, sect leader Tong Tian, heavenly primogenitor, and Taoist Juanti are also here? Why didn't I see them?" The name Taoist Juanti sounded a little strange. He was originally the second sect leader of Western Taoism. Later, he abandoned Taoism and became a Buddhist, so he became the famous Master Bodhi in the future. On the other hand, the names Tong Tian sect leader and Yuan Shi Tianzuan were simply too deafening. Ruan Hongling herself was a genuine Taoist disciple, and Taoism worshipped the three clear emperors, namely the Grand Clear Taishang Lao Jun, the Yinqing Yuan Shi Tianzuan, and the Prime Clear Tong Tian sect leader. But two of the three main gods had come at once. What did this mean? This was equivalent to believers of Jesus Christ seeing God, believers of Muslims seeing Allah, believers of Buddhists seeing Buddha himself. Li Yundong said to Ruan Hongling with a wry smile, "I can feel their existence, but you can't." Ruan Hongling also knew that if she could sense the existence of sect leader Tong Tian and heavenly primogenitor, then these two guys would not be the three gods of Taoism, but imitations. Ruan Hongling was a little confused and said, "But why do they come here instead of staying in the Purple Cloud Palace?" Li Yundong looked at Ruan Hongling with a strange face and said, "Haven't you figured it out yet? I wonder what dynasty this is." "The Shang dynasty," Ruan Hongling said in surprise. Li Yundong said, "Yes, don't you know that King Wen of Zhou, Ji Chang, has rebelled and is about to attack Xiaoga? The War of God's investiture is in full swing." "The War of God's investiture?" Zhou Qin and Lin Miao suddenly said in unison. Li Yundong nodded and said with a serious face, "That's right." Zhou Qin's heart skipped a beat, and she said thoughtfully, "Could it be that the mystical silver fox came to this era on purpose?" Li Yundong shook his head and said, "I don't know about that. However, if I'm not wrong, Su Daji should be the previous incarnation of the mystical silver fox. The reason why the mystical silver fox came here is probably to seize Su Daji's strength and body when she was defeated and fled, and then to make a comeback. There will be another update in a minute. Chapter 909. When Zhou Qin and the others heard Li Yundong's words, they immediately exclaimed in shock, "What? Su Daiji was the previous incarnation of the mystical silver fox?" Li Yundong looked at them with a strange expression. Don't you know? Don't you know why the War of God's investiture started? Xueqi asked with a strange look on her face. Why? Guan Hongling opened her mouth and said, could it be because of the dispute between the three religions? Li Yundong glanced at her and smiled. An inner disciple is indeed an inner disciple. You are indeed different. Yes, it is indeed because of this reason. As he spoke, Li Yundong told the whole story from the beginning to the end with confidence and composure. After Pangu created the world, the 3 souls and 7 spirits turned into 1 qi. After Taoist Hongjun found out, he turned this qi into the 3 pure ones, which were Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, Taishang Laojun, and sect leader Tongtian. Hongjun became the most transcendent god after Pangu, and the 3 pure ones were his 3 eldest disciples. They were in charge of Taoism, Chan school, and Jie school respectively. These 3 sects monopolized the 3 realms of heaven, earth, and human, which made their status superior, and thus caused many later cultivators to be dissatisfied. At the same time, Taoist Hongjun also found that the boundary between the heaven realm and the human realm was blurred. There were countless disciples of sect leader Tongtian, and there were all kinds of people. The disciples of sect leader Tongtian were everywhere in the heaven realm, and at the same time, there were immortals everywhere in the human realm. Moreover, these immortals occupied a mountain as kings, vaguely meaning to be kings of grass. Many people did not listen to Taoist Hongjun's command. At this time, Taoist Hongjun had an idea. He instructed his other 2 disciples, Haotian the Great and the Queen Mother, to establish the heavenly palace and the heaven realm. From then on, the boundary between the human realm and the heaven realm was divided. It meant to call back all the immortals who had become bandits in the human world, so that they would not behave atrociously outside all day long. But after a while, Haotian the Great, who was also the Jade Emperor, ran to ancestor Hongjun and cried, "Boss, my heavenly palace has been established for a long time, but no one has come. You want me and the Queen Mother of the West to guard an empty heavenly palace. What the hell are you doing?" Old ancestor Hongjun thought about it. Indeed, this was not a good idea. Those immortals who fooled around in the human world were used to being wild. Each and every one of them was free and unfettered, enjoying the incense of the human world. Who would be willing to be controlled by the heavenly palace? Therefore, ancestor Hongjun called his 3 disciples over and said, "Your little brother, Great Emperor Hao Tian, is going to build the heavenly court. For the sake of our relationship, each of you should contribute some people." When the 3 pure ones heard this, they thought, "What? You want to poach people from me?" "No, absolutely not." Old Lord Taishang was the first to complain. "Boss Hongjun, I only have 1 disciple. Don't tell me you want to poach my disciple as well?" Hongjun had to turn his head and say to Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, "You are my eldest disciple. Give me some face and send a few disciples over. You have a lot of disciples, right?" Heavenly Lord Yuanshi spread out his hands and said, "Boss, I have 12 golden immortals under me. Why don't you see which one is suitable to be picked?" The 12 golden immortals under Heavenly Lord Yuanshi were famous. All of them were earth-shattering. The leader was the teacher of Yellow Emperor Shenyuan, Guang Chengzi, followed by Taoist Huang Long, Immortal Tai, Heavenly Lord Guang Fa, Taoist Sihong, Chijingzi, Zhu Sun, Master Lingbao, Samantabhadra, Immortal Yuding, and Lord Qingshu. Among them, Heavenly Lord Guang Fa, Taoist Sihong, and Samantabhadra were the most familiar to the world. In the future, they would abandon Taoism and become Buddhism. One was the famous Manjushri Bodhisattva, one was Guanyin Bodhisattva, and the last one was Samantabhadra. Each of these 12 golden immortals were masters of their own mountains. They were powerful and influential. They were not people to be trifled with. If they went to the heavenly palace to be conferred as gods, it would be bad if they created a ruckus. Hongjun could only look at sect leader Tongtian and said, "Third brother, you have the most people. Why don't you send a few helpers?" Sect leader Tongtian was heroic. He wanted to agree at first, but Taishang Laojun and Heavenly Lord Yuanshi were fanning the flames at the side. "Yes, you have the most people. If you don't send people, who will?" Sect leader Tongtian had the temper of a donkey. It would have been better if he didn't say it. Once he said it, his temper came. "What? You want me to send people just because you ask me to? I won't. What are you going to do?" Because of this, the 3 pure ones parted on bad terms. Ancestor Hongjun was also helpless. He could only say to the tearful Jade Emperor, Haotian, wait patiently. I will send a list of deification down. Let those whose names are on the list come here to be officials. Jade Emperor asked with a sad face. But whose names are on the list? Besides, with their names, what if they don't come? Hongjun had no choice but to say, if they don't come, let them go through the tribulation. I will beat them until they have nowhere to go. Then they will come, right? The last years of the Shang dynasty was the last era of miracles in China's history. In this era, people and gods lived together. It was an era where genuine Jinshin could be found everywhere. The thunder tribulations were as numerous as dogs. You could meet several Jinshin masters when you went out to buy breakfast. If you threw a brick from the roof, you could hit a thunder tribulations master. In this era, there were deities everywhere, turning the land into a king. Everyone believed in deities, and those from slightly better families all cultivated. Moreover, the mainland of China at this time was truly filled with natural treasures. There were exotic beasts everywhere, and the land was not overly exploited. Therefore, there were spiritual mountains and treasured lands everywhere. In the future, elixirs and medicines that were hard to come by were everywhere in this era. In this era, if you did not cultivate to the Thunder Tribulations realm, you would be embarrassed to greet others. Those with slightly better cultivations all had their eyes on the top of their heads and lived a carefree and happy life in their own small territories. In the eyes of the later generations, becoming a god was an incomparably glorious and great thing, but in their eyes, it was really the most difficult thing in the world. If they could be a boss, why would they want to be someone else's helper? Therefore, the Jade Emperor also knew that even if Hongjun came out of the list of deification, none of these guys would be willing to come. But according to Hongjun, if they came, it would definitely cause chaos. The three realms of heaven, earth, and man would be in chaos. At this time, the Western sect master, Taoist Xueqi, who would be the future ancestor Bodhi, keenly sensed the disharmony between the three sections. He had been assigned to the Western world by Hongjun, but what kind of place was the Western world? It was Xinjiang. Although there were immortal treasures like Kunlun Mountain and Heaven Lake, there were more places in the desert. Moreover, this place was sparsely populated. How could there be incense offerings? Therefore, Ancestor Bodhi knew that if he wanted to be promoted, he had to disturb the central world. Therefore, he suggested Master Hongjun, now that the human realm is the world of Qingtang, why don't you let the Emperor of Qingtang come to the heaven realm, discuss with him, and then ask him to cooperate? Hearing that, Hongjun thought, not bad, this is a good idea. But I can't see the Emperor of the human realm. Otherwise, all the emperors will come to see me in the future. Won't I be annoyed to death? Let him see Goddess Nviwa. Man was created by Goddess Nviwa, so naturally, she was in charge. Although Hongjuan's idea was good, it could not stop Ancestor Bodhi's ulterior motives. When King Zhou heard that Goddess Nviwa wanted to see him, he was instantly overjoyed. He took a bath and changed his clothes, dressed up properly, and went to the Goddess Nviwa's temple. But at this time, Ancestor Bodhi plotted against him behind his back. He used the art of seduction to confuse his mind, making King Zhou lose his mind. Then, he left an obscene poem on the stone pillar of the Goddess Nviwa's temple. This time, he made a big mistake. Goddess Nviwa was furious. F***CK. I created all your ancestors. How dare you flirt with me? You really don't know what's good for you. Then, she sent her strongest, most capable, and most beautiful subordinate to the mortal world, ready to disturb Qingtang's 600 years of rule. At this time, the vigorous Great War of Gods investiture officially began. Li Yundong spoke with confidence and composure. He was eloquent to begin with. At this time, his words were so eloquent that Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao were really stunned. It took them a long time to come back to their senses. Lin Miao stammered, "This most capable and beautiful subordinate of Goddess Nviwa's. Could it be the mystical silver fox?" Li Yundong said with emotion, "In that life, she was not called the mystical silver fox, but the nine-tailed celestial fox." At that time, the nine-tailed fox was still a god worshipped by the world. Su Chan also sighed softly and said, "Yes, at that time, we fox spirits still enjoyed the offerings and incense of the human world. But since the Tang dynasty, no one has believed in the nine-tailed celestial fox anymore." Lin Miao was curious and asked, "I know you the Great. He is one of the three sovereigns in Yao Shun Yu's story. What was the result? Did he marry her?" Su Chan nodded and said with a smile, yes. You the Great later married the nine-tailed white fox. As she spoke, she looked at Li Yundong happily, as if Li Yundong was going to marry her in the next second. Li Yundong tapped her nose with a smile and said, why are you smiling so stupidly? Su Chan giggled and said, nothing, I'm just smiling. The two of them were talking and laughing. Xueqi, who was standing to one side, finally came to her senses from what Li Yundong had said. She asked in confusion, but, isn't this the content of investiture of the gods? Li Yundong looked at Xueqi with a strange expression. Didn't Journey to the West also talk about Marshal Tianping? I met Lin Youfa before. This old guy asked Marshal Tianping to possess him several times. At that time, I almost couldn't beat him. As he said this, he smiled and said to Xueqi, tell me, how did Master Guan become a god? His title is not small, and his divine power is far superior to that of the Holy Emperor Guan. Xueqi said tentatively, could it be that he became a god after the romance of the Three Kingdoms? Li Yundong clapped his hands and said, that's right. In the first year of Chongning, Emperor Huizong of the Northern Song dynasty, he was only posthumously recognized as Duke Zhonghui. In the third year of Chongning, he was posthumously recognized as Zhanjuan Chongning. Although he had been promoted, he was still a human being. At the end of the Yuan dynasty and the beginning of the Ming dynasty, when the Romance of the Three Kingdoms came out, he was immediately promoted to a very high position. In the 42nd year of Wanli, during the period of the Ming Shen sect, Emperor Wanli conferred him the title of the Holy Emperor Guan. From then on, Master Guan officially became a god. Only then did Xueqi understand. Ah, I finally understand what Master meant when you said that Buddha fights for an incense stick. When the common people think that you have become a god, then you are a god. So in order to compete for the faith of the common people, sects fight with each other. Whoever has more believers will have more power. Li Yundong nodded with a smile and said, yes, that's what I mean. As he spoke, he sighed and said, in the last years of the Shang dynasty, before the Great War of Gods investiture began, human beings and gods lived together, so the common people could see flying immortals every day. Naturally, they believed in gods. But after the Great War of Gods investiture, immortals were no longer allowed to live in the world, and mortals were not allowed to go to the heaven realm. Because of the separation between human beings and gods, there was no more contact. Slowly, the common people did not believe in gods as before. At this time, Wan Hongling asked in confusion, after saying so much, what should we do? How can we find the mystical silver fox? Li Yundong looked at them helplessly and said, Su Chan and I originally wanted to hide aside with the help of the invisibility talisman of the goddess Nenya Seal and watch the situation in secret, waiting for the mystical silver fox or Su Daiji to appear. If the mystical silver fox comes forward to seize Su Daiji's true body of the nine-tailed celestial fox, then we will go forward to intercept her. If she doesn't show up, we will find a way to find her true body and make plans. Wan Hongling looked at him unhappily and said, why do I feel that there seems to be something else in your tone? Sure enough, Li Yundong sighed and said, but you suddenly appeared and alerted the snake. Now, we are all exposed. The mystical silver fox must have known that we followed her and chased after her. I think she won't show up easily again. Only then did Wan Hongling know what a big mistake she had made. She was a little annoyed in her heart, but she refused to admit defeat. She said stubbornly, then let's go find Su Daiji. Isn't the mystical silver fox looking for her? Let's take Su Daiji directly and see if she comes out. As she said this, she felt that her idea was really wonderful, so she said proudly, this is called catching the king first to catch the thief. Chapter 9-10. Li Yundong and Su Chan were stunned by Wan Hongling's words, and they looked at each other in dismay. Seeing their expressions, Wan Hongling couldn't help but feel guilty. She braced herself and said, what? Isn't it wrong to capture the leader first? Li Yundong said with a wry smile, it's easy for you to say. I won't talk about whether Su Daiji is powerful or not, but do you know how many masters there are in Zhaoga City? I won't talk about Grand Tutor Wen. This is Universal Tianzuan, who will be conferred the title of Jiutian Ingyuan Thunder God in the future. I think you also know that he is the Thunder God of the Heavenly Palace, the commander of the 24 main gods, and his divine power is amazing. Moreover, do you know who the #1 master in Zhaoga City is? Wan Hongling asked curiously. Isn't it Grand Tutor Wen? Li Yundong shook his head and said, I used to think it was Grand Tutor Wen like you, but when I came here, I realized that the #1 master of the Shang dynasty was not Grand Tutor Wen, but someone you could never imagine. At this time, not only was Ruan Hongling curious, but Zhou Qin and Lin Miao also asked curiously, who is it? Li Yundong said with a strange expression, King Zhou. The three women gasped at the same time. King Zhou of Shang? No way. He is the #1 master? Li Yundong said, yes, think about it. King Zhou went to see Goddess Nviwa and left a poem to flirt with her. Why didn't Goddess Nviwa kill him immediately for such a sin? With Goddess Wa's divine power, it should be no problem for her to kill an ordinary mortal, right? Zhou Qin said curiously, yes, then why didn't Goddess Wa do it herself? Is it because she doesn't want to dirty her hands? Li Yunyang sneered and said, don't joke. King Zhou is the supreme emperor of the mortal world after all. His status is high. Although he is not as high as Goddess Wa, his status is not lower than those golden immortals in the world. The reason why she didn't do it herself is very simple, because she can't beat him. Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How could Goddess Wa lose to King Zhou? Are you kidding me? At this time, Su Chan said very seriously, it's not a joke. Yundong and I wanted to sneak into the imperial palace of Xiaoga City. As soon as we approached a kilometer away from the palace, we could feel an extremely powerful force surging toward us, as if a pair of invisible eyes were staring at us. Ruan Hongling looked at Li Yundong doubtfully, only to see him nodding in agreement. Only then did she believe him and ask, could it be Grand Tutor Wen? Or the primordial Lord of Heaven and the others? Li Yundong shook his head and said, no, the aura is different. This kind of aura is very powerful and majestic. It's different from the aura of ordinary golden immortals. Zhou Qin was tongue-tied and said, but. There is no record in the book that King Zhou is so powerful. They only said that he was extremely strong and could fight lions and tigers empty-handed. Li Yundong sighed and said, the books also say that cultivation is futile. Think about it. In this era, people and gods are living together. Those with slightly better backgrounds are cultivating, and even those with poorer backgrounds are worshipping the gods. As an emperor, how could King Zhou not cultivate? I don't believe it even if you beat me to death. Zhou Qin opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, she swallowed her words. She didn't say it, but she didn't believe it in her heart. In her opinion, even if King Zhou was powerful, his power was extremely limited. At this time, Lin Miao saw that they hadn't come to the point after talking for a long time, so he couldn't help but say, what should we do now? Master, hurry up and make an idea. Li Yundong pondered for a while and said, in my opinion, we might as well wait here. When the troops of King Wu of Zhou, GFA, come to Xiaoga, this place will be a mess. At that time, no one will be in the mood to make trouble for us, and we can take the opportunity to fish in troubled waters. Ruan Hongling, who was on the side, finally found a topic to talk about. She scratched her cheek with her fingers and said, aren't you ashamed? You are the reincarnated Wisdom King, but you are so timid. Wait for King Wen of Zhou to come to Xiaoga? I'm afraid it will be too late. If he doesn't fight for a day, will we wait here? What if he doesn't fight for a year? What if he doesn't fight for 10 years? Li Yunyang glared at her and said, nonsense. I've heard people talking about it in Xiaoga City. They said that Zhou Wuwang has already fought his way to the vicinity of Xiaoga City and will come here soon. Zhou Qin suddenly understood and said, I see. No wonder Xiaoga City is so heavily guarded. So many people came here when we made a little noise. Li Yundong scolded with a smile. You call this a little noise? You call King Zhou, but that's what King Wen of Zhou and King Wu of Zhou call him. It would be strange if they didn't take you as a spy. Don't blame them for making a big noise. Zhou Qin smiled and said, Master, don't you also call him that? Li Yundong said with a smile, I won't call him that in front of his subordinates. What's the difference between that and a slap in the face? At this time, Lin Miao couldn't help but say, wait, I know I may be the most useless and have no right to speak, but what should we do now? Do we stay here and continue to wait? Li Yundong looked at Lin Miao and said, no, Lin Miao, tell me your idea. Lin Miao was a very assertive woman, which could be seen from the fact that she had resolutely gone from the west to the east and left Europe for Asia in order to pursue the path of cultivation. Although she maintained extreme awe for Li Yundong, she did not abandon her extremely rare independent thinking. She thought for a moment and said, "Master, I think it's better for us to make a compromise. It doesn't seem good to keep waiting outside the city. If there is a fight over there, we will rush over. What if we are late?" Li Yundong's heart skipped a beat. "You mean we should sneak into the city first, then hide and wait to see what happens?" Xueqi's eyes also lit up and she praised, "Yes, that's a good idea. It's better than waiting here." Li Yundong was not a headstrong person. He thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay, let's do as you say, Lin Miao." Ruan Hongling said proudly, "Look, it's my idea. Li Yundong, after you sneak into the city, in for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound." Li Yundong glared at her angrily. "You want to catch Dodgy, don't you? What's wrong with you? Why do you always have trouble with Dodgy? Our goal is the mystical silver fox." Ruan Hongling said curiously, "The mystical silver fox is the reincarnation of Dodgy. If we kill her in her previous life, won't her reincarnation be gone? You're so stupid." Li Yundong said, Yes, I'm stupid. You're smart. Zhenren Ruan, can you go and fight with the fighters in Zhaoga City?" Ruan Hongling curled her lips and said, "Of course I can't, but I didn't expect that you, the reincarnated Wisdom King, can't either. Humph, with so many of us helping you, you still don't dare. I really don't know what to say to you." Li Yundong was so angry that he laughed. "It's because of your helpers that I can't beat them." Ruan Hongling was so angry that she screamed and made threatening gestures. "What did you say? Li Yundong, don't think that I'm afraid of you just because your cultivation is high now. If you have the ability, say it again." Li Yundong smiled and said, "I won't say good things twice." As he said this, he turned his head and said to Xueqi and Lin Miao beside him with a smile, "I'm not talking about you. Don't think too much." Xueqi glanced at Ruan Hongling and pursed her lips into a smile. Lin Miao also chuckled. Li Yundong turned around and patted Su Chan's shoulder, who was trembling with laughter. He said, "Let's go back to Zhaoga City." As he said this, he left with Su Chan and the others. Only Ruan Hongling was so angry that she stamped her feet. She shouted behind Li Yundong, "Hey, Li, what do you mean? Am I the only one who is dragging my feet? Hey, make it clear." Li Yundong just turned a deaf ear to her. He smiled and enjoyed the scenery of China 3,000 years ago with Su Chan, Xueqi, and Lin Miao. Xueqi, Lin Miao, and the others had found Li Yundong, so they were relieved. Although they were in an era where Jinshin were everywhere and there were as many thunder tribulations as dogs, their cultivation was completely insignificant in this era, and their personal safety could not be guaranteed at all. They did not see the slightest worry. It seemed that as long as Li Yundong was by their side, even if all the gods and Buddhas came, they could sleep peacefully. The group of them chatted and laughed, just taking it as a sightseeing tour. When they arrived at the foot of Zhaoga City, the sun was already setting. In this era, the city gate closed very early. Before the sun set, the city gate was about to close. Li Yundong, Su Chan, and the others glanced at it and said, "Oh, the city gate is going to close. Hurry up and go in." "Go in? Can't we fly in at night?" Xueqi asked curiously. Li Yundong shook his head and said, "Are you kidding? There are so many masters in this city. If you fly in, you will have to mobilize your zhenqi. As soon as you mobilize your zhenqi, your breath will be exposed, and they will be able to discover your existence." Lin Miao asked curiously, "Then what should we do?" Li Yundong glanced at her and had an idea. He said with a smile, "You can pass if you cover your face with a cloth." Lin Miao blinked and looked down at her dress. She gritted her teeth, bent down, and tore off a large piece of the dress with a tearing sound. Then, she covered her face with it. Her voice came from behind the cloth, like this. Li Yundong, Su Chan, and the others looked at her and saw that she was dressed like an Arabian woman. They immediately laughed. Su Chan rolled her eyes at Li Yundong and reached out to pull the cloth off Lin Miao's face. She said, "Don't listen to his nonsense. He's making fun of you." Lin Miao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Master, my dress is a limited edition Chanel Autumn 2009. You can't buy it now. Li Yundong pulled a long face and tried to hold back his laughter. He said, "Well, I'll give you a strong Taoist robe when we go back. It's guaranteed that you'll wear it for the rest of your life." Although Lin Miao was wholeheartedly devoted to the Tao, she still had a heart that loved beauty. Moreover, when she first thought about cultivation, it was because she knew that cultivation could allow her to maintain her youthfulness. She had also seen those female cultivators wearing Taoist robes, and from an aesthetic point of view, it was really not flattering. She was a woman who loved beauty very much. When she heard that Li Yundong wanted her to wear such a Taoist robe for the rest of her life, she didn't dare to say anything more. She quickly shut up and didn't dare to say anything more. At this time, Li Yundong smiled at Su Chan and said, "Great Fairy Su, hurry up and do the ritual. How about we go to Xueqi City for a few days?" Su Chan giggled. Her cultivation was not low now, so it was really easy for her to get the sky prolonging seal. She cast a little spell, and their figures disappeared. Li Yundong took them along the last stream of people to the city gate, holding their breath and waiting patiently for the people at the city gate to be checked one by one. Just as they were about to follow the souls in, an ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out. It was the ringtone of the theme song of Titanic, "My Heart Will Go On." At this time, there were few people at the city gate, and the guards at the gate were all listless and relaxed. However, the sudden ringing suddenly scared them and they shouted, "What's that sound?" Su Chan and the others were even more shocked. Li Yundong complained in his heart and thought, "What the hell, which idiot still has a mobile phone? You can wear it, but you have to turn off the sound and mute it. Even if you don't mute it, you have to turn on the vibration. You guys are too unreliable. This time I'm going to die because of you. Sorry. There are too many things to do today, so it's late. Sorry. Everyone, don't wait, it's the last update today. In addition, a book friend asked me about Ji Bokeo. Shouldn't this man be called Bo E Cow in the book? In fact, this man's surname is Ji and his name is Cow. Bo is his seniority in the family. Bo is the highest, just like Bo E and Xueqi. The seniority of people who are called Bo is high, and the seniority of people who are called Xu is low. The ancients have the habit of stuffing seniority into the name, so Bo E Cow is actually called Ji Bokeo. Chapter 9-11. Ever since Li Yundong had stepped into the cultivation world, some of his previous habits had slowly changed. In the past, he loved to play online games, watch TV shows and movies, and his mobile phone was always with him. But now, he was almost isolated from the internet, and he had no time to play games. He hadn't watched TV shows or movies for a long time, and he had almost forgotten what his mobile phone was for. Li Yundong had always believed that if a cultivator wanted to advance bravely on the road of cultivation, he must be single-minded and have nothing else. If he was worried about when he would receive a text message and who would look for him while he was cultivating, then he might as well stop cultivating and continue to be an otaku. Influenced by him, Xueqi had also developed the habit of not carrying a mobile phone. At first, the little girl had been fascinated by the mobile phone for a while, and then she had thrown it behind her head. Ruan Hongling was an inner disciple, so she hardly carried a mobile phone except when she went to school. Therefore, Li Yundong and the others knew that there was only one person here who had the habit of carrying a mobile phone. Lin Miao. Li Yundong, Su Chan, Xueqi, and Ruan Hongling looked at Lin Miao at the same time, and their eyes were so fierce that they seemed to want to eat her. Lin Miao reached into her pocket in a panic and quickly pressed the button on her cell phone. Her face was as white as a sheet of paper. She opened her mouth to apologize, but Su Chan, who was beside her, immediately covered her mouth and whispered in her ear, "Don't speak." At this time, the guards at the city gate were already holding long spears and copper spears. They glared at the people at the city gate and shouted angrily, "What was that sound just now? Tell me, tell me." These people were so scared that they trembled and said repeatedly, "I don't know, it wasn't me, it wasn't me." It was a critical moment when the soldiers were at the city gate. These guards had already been ordered to guard the city gate strictly. Although they were a little tired and relaxed after standing for a day, they were suddenly stimulated by the strange sound and immediately became highly vigilant like police dogs. How could they believe the words of these people? The leading guard pointed at the people at the city gate and shouted, "Search, search them one by one." Li Yunyang's face stiffened. They were caught in the middle of the people. If they searched one by one, they would inevitably collide with them. Once they collided with them, they would immediately notice that something was wrong. Moreover, this was an era where everyone cultivated, and it was also the twilight era of the gods in the mortal world. People in this era watched sex fight and immortals fight every day. They had seen all kinds of strange things. If modern people saw the goddess Nyan seal, they would probably be so shocked that they would think that they had lost their minds and were hallucinating. But people in this era would immediately understand what was going on when they saw it. If these guards found out that something was wrong, Li Yundong and the others would immediately be exposed. It would be a little difficult for them to escape this time. Li Yundong glared at Lin Miao and stretched out his hand, motioning for her to take out her mobile phone quickly. Lin Miao pulled out his phone with sweat all over his forehead. He looked like a primary school student who had done something bad. He lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Li Yundong. Li Yundong took the phone and looked at it. He was dumbfounded when he saw that there was a missed call on the screen. It was from Feng Na. Holy shit, what a scam. How could the signal from 3,000 years later be transmitted to 3,000 years ago? Was there a mistake? What was going on? Li Yundong stared at the phone and didn't say anything for a long time. Seeing that the guards were getting closer and closer, Xueqi couldn't help but feel anxious. She quickly pulled Li Yundong's hand and motioned for him to think of a way. Li Yundong looked up and saw that the guards in front of him were like wolves and tigers, forcing the people to open their bags and even take off their clothes. Most of the people knelt down and kowtowed to beg for mercy. An old man not far from him was kowtowing like pounding garlic. He said with a sad face, "Your Excellency, it's really not from here. Please forgive us." As he said this, he turned around and pointed, shouting, "The sound is coming from here." Li Yundong was furious. He held the phone, quietly mobilized his Xueqi, and put the phone in his hand into the pocket of the old man's clothes not far from him. His cultivation had reached the peak, so it was easier for him to put a mobile phone into the old man's pocket without anyone noticing. The old man's clothes were in tatters, and there was nothing good about them. Li Yundong put the mobile phone into his clothes, and it immediately fell out of the torn clothes and fell to the ground with a clatter. It immediately attracted everyone's attention, and they all looked over at the same time. The guards immediately surrounded the old man. They pointed at the phone on the ground and shouted angrily, "What is this? Tell me, why did it fall from your body?" The old man was speechless. His expression was uncertain, and a layer of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He stammered, Your Excellency, listen to me. I don't know what this is and why it is with me." At this time, a guard came over with a torch, illuminating the surroundings. The leading guard looked down and picked up the phone. After looking at it carefully for a while, he suddenly glared at the old man and shouted, "How dare you quibble? How dare you deny such an exquisite powerful magical weapon? Tell me, are you a traitor of Ji Chong?" As he said this he shouted, "Come on, arrest him. It's better to catch the wrong person than to let him go." The surrounding guards shouted in unison and surrounded the old man, putting the long spears in their hands against his neck. Although Xueqi had seen that the old man had almost drawn the fire to them just now, she couldn't bear to see the old man suffer such an undeserved disaster. She pulled Li Yundong's arm and motioned for him to think of a way. Li Yundong saw that the matter was getting out of hand. He was frowning and thinking of a way to distract the guards when he suddenly saw the old man, who had been begging for mercy, suddenly burst into a bright light in his eyes. With a flip of his wrist, a 5-colored sword appeared in his hand in an instant. Li Yundong saw a flash of colorful light in front of him. In an instant, the guards surrounding the old man were torn into countless pieces. Some of their heads flew into the sky, some of their arms fell off, some of their legs were cut off, and some of their bodies were cut in half. They were in different states of misery, but without exception, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It seemed that even in death, they still couldn't believe that this old man, who was as humble as mud, was such a powerful master. The old man's humble appearance before and his amazing skills now formed a strong contrast. Not only did the guards on the city wall not react, but even Li Yundong and the others did not react for a while. They looked at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape, only to see that there was blood all around them. In an instant, it became a sea of blood. The old man killed the surrounding soldiers in an instant. He raised the 5-colored sword in his hand and shouted sternly, "Since we have been exposed, let's attack. Kill King Zhou and Daji." At this time the people next to him, who looked bitter, their clothes were torn, and their bodies were thin and their faces were pale, also shouted in unison. Their bones cracked, and in the blink of an eye, they became powerful cultivators. They held all kinds of powerful magical weapons in their hands, including knives, forks, swords, and halberds. They had all kinds of weapons and attacked the magnificent Xueqi city crazily. Some of these people went straight into the city hall, and some flew to the city wall that was dozens of meters high. In the blink of an eye, they killed the guards on the city tower. But soon, the cultivation masters in Xueqi city also reacted. They flew out one after another and fought with these people. The leader of the group looked at the center of his eyebrows and shouted angrily, "How dare the traitors of Ji Chong come here to court death? Kill!" It was Grand Tutor 1, who would be called Thunder God in the future. After he shouted, many experts flew out from the city. They were densely packed, and in an instant, they overwhelmed the assassins in terms of numbers. The old man in the lead raised his long sword again, and the five-colored sword in his hand suddenly emitted a five-colored beam of light with a buzz. It rose into the sky, not only spreading out a huge five-colored halo, but also didn't dissipate. It stirred up the clouds in the sky, and it could be seen clearly from more than 100 miles away. The old man shouted loudly, "King Wu will rise, and King Zhou will fall. Kill the evildoer and get rid of the tyrant." After he shouted, there was a series of loud bangs in the city, as if many bombs had been buried. They exploded 3 times in a row, and Xueqi city instantly turned into a sea of fire. Obviously, the spies hidden in the city had been activated. They set fires everywhere and cast spells. The city was in chaos. Su Chan, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao were all dumbfounded at this time. They had never dreamed that the ordinary people around them, who looked like beggars, would turn into a flying master in the blink of an eye. Xueqi city, which had just been immersed in the serene twilight, had now become a terrible battlefield. Su Chan stared blankly at the old man, whom she had felt infinite sympathy for just a moment ago, only to see him killing in and out of the crowd as if there was no one there. She swallowed hard and said dryly to Li Yundong, "Yundong, you are really amazing. You can control yourself." At a glance, you can see that this old man is on King Wu Wang's side. Zhou Qin and Lin Miao also nodded like chickens pecking rice. They looked at Li Yundong with great admiration and said, "Yes, yes, master, you are so powerful." "How did you know?" Ruan Hongling also said with admiration, "Li, you are good. You have the fiery eyes." The heavenly eyes could see the changes in people and all the illusions in the world, but Li Yundong was the reincarnated Wisdom King. The immovable Wisdom King was famous for his fighting skills, and most of the 5 great magical powers of Buddhism were not used for fighting, so he was not proficient in them. He could feel the existence of danger, but it was difficult for him to say what these dangers were and see through such high-level illusions. This was what it meant to be specialized in. The immovable Wisdom King also had magic and methods that he did not know. Li Yundong didn't know that the old man was so powerful, nor did he know that the group of people around him had unique skills. The lowest cultivation among them was a Jinshin master. He stared blankly at the chaotic scene in front of him. He laughed dryly and said, "Ah, I was just guessing." As Li Yundong spoke, he also felt guilty. He glared and thought to himself, "Damn, how could I know the true identity of these people? This is called a lucky hit." When Su Chan and the others saw Li Yundong's strange expression and tone, they couldn't help but feel suspicious. However, Ruan Hongling couldn't care less at this time. She jumped up and said excitedly, "Hurry up, let's fish in troubled waters and catch Su Daiji." Chapter 9:12. Ruan Hongling's words made Li Yundong look at her helplessly. He pointed to the scene of Xueqi burning the city and said, "It's like this inside. Aren't you afraid of danger?" Although Ruan Hongling often quarreled with Li Yundong and had always been unconvinced of him, she admired and even worshipped Li Yundong in her heart. It could be said that she had watched Li Yundong grow from nothing, from a rookie who had just started cultivating step by step to the great master who was famous in the world today. She had seen Li Yundong defeat the strong countless times with the weak. She had seen him fight against many alone and defeat the strong enemies in an impossible disadvantage. When Mount Tai was about to collapse and the building was about to collapse, he turned the tide again and again, holding up the sky with one arm. Although these masters of the Shang dynasty were powerful and numerous, Ruan Hongling was born optimistic and had a blind trust in Li Yundong. She always felt that nothing would happen to him. Moreover, Li Yundong had now obtained the real body of Wisdom King, and his strength was earth-shattering. She really could not think of anyone in the world who could be his opponent. Therefore, Ruan Hongling did not take the war in front of her seriously at all. As a modern person from 3,000 years ago, what had she not seen? Why would she be afraid of such a small scene? It was a piece of cake. Damn it! Ruan Hongling waved her hand and smiled. The more dangerous the place, the safer it is. Besides, I accidentally came to Zhaoga of the Shang dynasty. I can't go back without seeing anything, can I? I have to see Su Daji, the enchantress of ancient times. Otherwise, it won't be worth the ticket price. Zhou Qin, who was standing to one side, also looked at Li Yundong eagerly. Although she was calm, it was absolutely impossible to say that she was not curious at all when encountering such a thing. What does Su Daji look like? Is she as beautiful as me? When a beautiful woman heard of another beautiful woman, most of them would have such a subconscious reaction at the first moment. No matter how smart a person was, there was no exception. Moreover, this woman was a peerless beauty who was famous throughout the ages. She was famous far and wide. Li Yundong glared at Ruan Hongling and Zhou Qin, but just as he was about to scold them, he saw Su Chan gently pull his arm. Li Yundong turned his head and saw Su Chan say, "Yundong, go and have a look. Now is indeed a good opportunity." Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Do you think you're shooting a movie or traveling here?" Ruan Hongling looked down and saw that some of the heads of the soldiers who had been killed were resting in the sky. Their eyes were bulging, and the blood vessels seemed to have exploded in their eyes. Their deaths were extremely tragic. She was shocked, and only then did she feel a little scared. She quickly formed a palm with one hand, bowed, and said, "Amateus, everyone, you have a bad life in this life. You should die early and reincarnate early. I wish you a good reincarnation in your next life. I'll be there soon after that." She raised her head and said, "Don't hesitate. In a while, King Wuwang and his men will enter the palace. At that time, you won't be able to see Daji. It's a small matter that you can't see Daji. If the mystical silver fox gets there first, wouldn't it be a big problem?" Li Yundong calmed himself down and thought carefully for a moment. Then he said, "You must follow me closely. You can't leave me even one step. Do you hear me?" Su Chan, Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao all nodded vigorously. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao couldn't help but show a trace of excitement in their eyes. Their cultivation was relatively shallow, so they couldn't understand the power of these masters. Li Yundong's cultivation had reached the realm of the unity of heaven and man. He was very clear about the strength of the other side. If he was alone, he would naturally not be afraid. He could break into the dragon's pool and the tiger's den if he wanted to. However, there were not only Su Chan and Zhou Qin beside him, but also Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao, who were dragging him down, which made him worry. Li Yundong led Su Chan and the others slowly into the city under the cover of the goddess Nenya seal. As soon as they entered the city gate, they saw several figures fall from the city tower and fall beside Ruan Hongling with a thud. Several corpses fell to the ground and were badly mutilated. Blood splashed everywhere, and Ruan Hongling's face was covered with blood. She was so scared that she couldn't help screaming. She wiped her face hard with both hands and said angrily, "Bah bah, it stinks. Who is it? Are you throwing corpses?" Her scream immediately attracted the attention of two burly cultivators on the city tower. They shouted, "Who's down there? Show yourself." Li Yundong glared at Ruan Hongling angrily. "You little girl, can't you stop for a while?" He quickly winked at Zhou Qin and Su Chan, indicating that they should leave with him quickly. However, at this time, the two people on the city tower did not intend to let them go. One of them snorted angrily and said, "How dare you show off your insignificant skills? Show yourself." After that, he picked up a mirror in his hand and shone it at Li Yundong and the others. Almost there. A white light suddenly shot down from the mirror, immediately illuminating the figures of Li Yundong and the others, making it impossible for them to hide. Li Yundong had no choice but to turn around. Just as he was about to cup his hands and say, "You too, I'm just here to buy some soy sauce and hide. I'll leave in a while. You two take your time. I won't bother you." However, the other side refused to let them go. With a loud shout, they rushed toward Li Yundong. One of them was in the immortal Jinshin phase, and the other was in the immortal Jinshin phase. If it had been in the past, they would have been strong opponents for Li Yundong. However, Li Yundong didn't use much qi at this time. He pushed his palms toward the two people who were rushing at him like lightning. With two bangs, the palms of the three people collided. Suddenly, the two people's bodies shook, and with a scream, they were sent flying. But the two of them were really amazing. Just as their bodies were about to hit the wall behind them like cannonballs, they actually pushed their heels back, and the tips of their toes touched the corner of the wall. They converted the force of their forward momentum into upward momentum, and they jumped onto the wall in one fell swoop. The two of them hadn't expected that Li Yundong would be so strong as to send them flying as soon as they met. Their faces suddenly changed. They pointed at Li Yundong and said angrily, "You are helping the wicked. You will die a horrible death in the future." After saying that, they flashed to the side without saying a word. It was unknown whether they were looking for a place to heal their wounds or to call for help. Li Yundong quickly turned to Xueqi and said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go." Xueqi and the others seemed to wake up from a dream and followed Li Yundong into the streets of the city. At this time, Xueqi city was already in chaos. There were people running around in panic everywhere. There were towering flames and deafening shouts everywhere. It was unknown how many spies of the Zhou dynasty had lurked in and were fanning the flames everywhere. Li Yundong and the others were dressed strangely. The men were tall and handsome, and the women were graceful and beautiful. Although it was night, they were very eye-catching against the light of the flames. After taking a few steps, they were stared at by another group of people. This group of people was obviously much larger than the previous two. There were 13 or 14 people, and all of them were in the Jinshan phase. The leader's eyes were as sharp as lightning, and he was a master of the lightning retribution phase. When this group of people saw Li Yundong, they were suddenly stunned, and then shouted angrily, "Stop, who are you?" Li Yundong sighed in his heart. He fixed his eyes on the clothes of the people opposite him, and saw that they were dressed the same as the two people he had met before. They were all wearing gray linen gowns, with one arm bare and a headband on their heads. He said, "Don't get me wrong. We are the subordinates of King Wu. We are here to help you fight against King Zhou. Please do us a favor." Before he could finish his words, the leader said angrily, "King Wu is a bastard. You slandered my king, King Zhou. You are courting death. Kill him." Suddenly, more than a dozen people shouted angrily, and the weapons and powerful magical weapons in their hands smashed toward Li Yundong's head. Xueqi and Xueqi, who were standing to one side, were shocked. Just as they were about to fight, they saw Li Yundong slap the ground with his palm. Suddenly, the blue stone slabs on the ground were lifted up like a carpet. In an instant, a violent wave rolled up and rushed high, smashing toward the dozen people coming toward them like a collapsing pillar. The dozen people were shocked and hurriedly used the weapons and powerful magical weapons in their hands to protect their bodies. After they blocked this fierce blow, they took a closer look and found that Li Yundong and the others had disappeared. The leader was furious. "Chase after him." As he spoke, he chased along the street. After they left, Li Yundong and the others flashed out from a dark corner. Li Yundong glared at Ruan Hongling and said, "This is your good idea. We have been in danger twice along the way. The more people we meet, the stronger they are. Will there be a gold immortal next time?" Ruan Hongling smiled embarrassedly and said, "How would I know that we were so unlucky?" As she said this, she clapped her hands and said, "Don't worry, there won't be so many people. Let's go quickly." Li Yundong said angrily, "Go, where do we go?" Ruan Hongling shrank her head and muttered in a low voice, "How would I know?" Li Yundong glared at her, turned to look at Xueqi, and said, "Where do you think we should go?" Xueqi calmed down, looked around carefully, and said, "Master, let's go directly to the palace. Hide along the way and take more dark and narrow alleys." Li Yundong nodded, turned around, and grabbed Xueqi's little hand. He whispered, "Follow me closely." Xueqi smiled sweetly and said, "Don't worry, I can protect myself." Li Yundong nodded and said, "I know." But even though he said this, he still held her hand tighter. They walked through the dark streets. On the way, they saw several people searching, but they all avoided them. Seeing the magnificent towering palace of Dxin not far away, Ruan Hongling couldn't help pointing at the palace excitedly and saying, "We're almost there. Hurry up! Hurry up!" As she said this, she quickly rushed in the direction of the palace. At this time, Li Yundong and the others were in a narrow and dark alley, with the mansions of the nobles on both sides. They passed through the narrow alley and suddenly saw a very spacious square in front of them. There were 9 incomparably huge square cauldrons placed in 9 different directions. In the middle, there were 5 huge round cauldrons placed in 5 different directions. In the middle, there was a towering statue of a god. It wore a crown on its head and held a sharp sword in its hand. Its eyes were fierce, and it looked like it was alive. As soon as Ruan Hongling rushed out of the alley, she was so scared that she immediately stopped. She was stunned and looked in front of her in a daze. Li Yundong also rushed to the entrance of the alley, and suddenly his eyes widened. He subconsciously wanted to turn around and leave, but the street was so narrow that only one person could pass through. As soon as he stopped, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and Lin Miao squeezed over one after another. "Hey, don't just stand there. Get out, get out." Seeing that the legendary King Zhou and Daji were not far away, the little girl was also a little excited. She followed Ruan Hongling and urged them crazily. Seeing that Li Yundong was standing there in a daze, she stretched out her hand and pushed Li Yundong out. As soon as she pushed Li Yundong away, she only took a glance and was suddenly dumbfounded. Zhou Qin and Lin Miao, who were behind her, didn't know what had happened, but they pushed her out again in the same way. They came out one after another and looked at the square one by one. They were all stunned and speechless. Li Yundong turned his head and looked at Ruan Hongling and Su Chan with a wry smile. "You guys have done me in." Chapter 9:13. This was none other than the core hinterland of Xueqi City, which was also the famous Deer Terrace Pavilion. Usually, there were guards patrolling these places. Not to mention a person, not even a bird or a fly could fly in. But at this time, Xueqi City was in chaos. The guards who usually guarded Deer Terrace Pavilion were busy quelling the chaos everywhere, and the security of Deer Terrace Pavilion had greatly decreased. But even so, the huge square of Deer Terrace Pavilion was still densely packed with people. These people were divided into 2 groups, with the 9-5 bronze tripod as the middle line. They faced each other and were clearly divided. On the west side of the square of the 9-5 bronze tripod stood a large group of lightning retribution masters. Although they were all different in height, fat and thin, and their clothes were a little shabby, their eyes were full of divine light, as if they were about to spit out lightning. On the east side stood a golden-armored strongman. This golden-armored strongman looked extremely tall at first glance, half a body taller than the people around him. He leaned on a huge sword and looked down at the ragged rebels in front of him. His face was cold and he didn't say a word, looking extremely dignified. A lightning retribution master had earth-shattering power. With a raise of his hand, he could summon the wind and rain, and change the world. When this large group of lightning retribution masters stood together, the momentum and pressure produced were really too terrifying. Even a top expert like Li Yundong was shocked by the suffocating pressure in front of him and didn't dare to act rashly. At this time, the amazing shouts and noises of Xueqi City seemed to have gone far away. Deer Terrace Pavilion became extremely quiet. The dark clouds in the sky quickly gathered from all directions and hovered over the top of Deer Terrace Pavilion. The wind slowly blew around. The people on both sides were confronting each other. They both knew that if the other side made a move, it would definitely be an earth-shattering blow. Therefore, they both appeared particularly cautious and were looking at each other vigilantly and nervously. The air seemed to be filled with a dry smell of gunpowder. As long as a spark jumped out, it could immediately ignite the whole place and turn the world upside down. But at this time, Li Yundong and the others suddenly broke in. When these people saw Li Yundong and the other uninvited guests coming out from the side, they immediately looked at them in unison. There were probably hundreds of Thunder Retribution and Jinshin masters among these people. With so many eyes looking at them at the same time, it was really like hundreds of mountains falling from the sky, pressing down on Li Yundong and the others. Although Zhou Qin and Su Chan were behind Li Yundong, they were so shocked that they trembled when they saw so many eyes staring at them. Their chests felt as if they had been cut by a knife. They were in so much pain that they almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Li Yundong was shocked. He immediately took a step forward and stood in front of them like a giant. Although the pressure that had almost made Zhou Qin and Su Chan collapse was as fierce as a monstrous wave, Li Yundong was like an unshakable mountain. No matter how fierce the waves were, he remained motionless, and his expression did not change at all. The people on both sides were shocked at the same time. None of them knew Li Yundong and the others. They all secretly thought that they were the other side's helpers, so they were secretly vigilant. The leader of the guard standing on the side of Deer Terrace Pavilion thought to himself, "This person's cultivation is so high that I have never seen anyone in my life. Only my king, King Dxian, can defeat him. In addition, I'm afraid that even Grand Tutor One is no match for him." The rebels on the side of the Western Zhou also looked at Li Yundong in surprise and doubt. The leader of the group thought to himself, "This person is so powerful. Could he be Tong Tian of the Three Pure Ones?" The Three Pure Ones represented the three major forces. The leader of Ren's school, Taishang Laojun, only had one disciple who could be ordered around, so his power was the weakest. The honored lord of the origin of the Chan school only had 12 disciples. Although these 12 disciples were all powerful figures, they all liked to cultivate in seclusion. Although Tong Tian ranked last among the Three Pure Ones, he was forthright and chivalrous. Ancestor Hong Jun's love for him was far greater than that of the honored lord of the origin and Taishang Laojun. This could be seen from the 4 immortal killing swords that Hong Jun had taught Tong Tian. In this era, Tong Tian was a strengthened version of Lord Meng Chong. He never refused anyone who came to seek refuge with him. If someone came to be his disciple, he would accept them without hesitation. Even murderers who committed murder and arson. If someone came to ask for money, he would immediately give them as much as they wanted. His behavior made the power of the tribe of Severity increase exponentially, far surpassing that of Taishang Laojun and the honored lord of the origin. In the Shang dynasty, almost every family believed in the tribe of Severity. Only a few upper-class nobles occasionally believed in the tribe of Severity. The dominance of the tribe of Severity aroused the dissatisfaction of Taishang Laojun and the honored lord of the origin. Even ancestor Hong Jun was somewhat vigilant. "Damn it! You are my disciple. What do you want to do with so many people? Do you want to sit in my position?" Therefore, when Taishang Laojun and the honored lord of the origin joined hands to deal with Tong Tian, ancestor Hong Jun turned a blind eye. The tribe of Severity led by Tong Tian was deeply rooted in the Shang dynasty. Therefore, in this war between humans and gods, Tong Tian helped King Zhou. Taishang Laojun and the honored lord of the origin, as challengers who wanted to overthrow the current power structure, naturally helped King Wu of Western Zhou and his men who rebelled. In the beginning, the patriarchs of the Three Pure Ones were only controlling the battle from behind. On both sides, there were only ordinary soldiers killing each other. But as the war went on, cultivators began to intervene. Now, both sides were bare-chested. Only the patriarchs of the Three Pure Ones did not join the battle themselves. In the eyes of the rebels of Western Zhou, they had now entered the hinterland of Zhaoga. If Tong Tian did not take action now, the situation would be difficult to reverse. Therefore, the man who could remain calm under the collective pressure of so many masters must be Tong Tian, one of the patriarchs of the Three Pure Ones. The cultivators of the Shang dynasty thought that Li Yundong was a helper of Western Zhou, so they were very afraid. The cultivators of Western Zhou thought that Li Yundong was Tong Tian, so they were even more vigilant. At this time, both sides had an idea. Without saying a word, their eyes flashed and they shouted in unison, throwing countless magic arts and magic weapons at Li Yundong. Li Yundong's cultivation had stunned them all at once, so this time, he was really fighting to the death. He used the most sinister, vicious, terrifying and fierce magic, and threw out the most powerful magic weapons. At this time, Zhou Qin and Su Chan had just recovered from their previous injuries. They bent slightly, covered their chests, and rubbed the stagnant breath in their chests. At this time, they saw the sky suddenly shining brightly, and countless magic arts were bombarding them. There were red, yellow, blue, green, and purple lights of all colors. There were all kinds of magic arts of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. There were also countless magic weapons mixed in the various colors of the divine light. These Dharma spells and Dharma treasures were so overwhelming that they almost filled their vision. They couldn't even see the sky. Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao were so scared that they took a few steps back, and their eyes flashed with despair. Li Yundong's face froze, and his hands quickly pinched the immovable Wisdom King's fundamental seal. He shouted and put his palms in front of him. With a bang, a golden statue of the immovable Wisdom King appeared in front of him. The vertical eye between the eyebrows of the immovable Wisdom King slowly opened with a hiss, and his eyes spewed out divine light. In an instant, A blue sea of fire burned in front of him, like a huge barrier. Any magic weapons and magic arts that rushed into the blue sea of fire were immediately burned to ashes. This shock caused the two groups of people to be dumbstruck. What they didn't know was that Li Yundong in front of them had already obtained the reincarnation of the Wisdom King's Dharmakaya. It was equivalent to the Wisdom King himself descending to the world. The power of his every move was far beyond ordinary people's imagination. Su Chan and the others knew that after Li Yundong retrieved the Wisdom King's Dharmakaya, his strength must have made a qualitative leap, but they didn't know how powerful he was. They hadn't seen Li Yundong fight with anyone with the power of the Wisdom King. But at this time, when he fought, it was really earth-shattering, especially when the opponents were hundreds of lightning retribution masters. Ruan Hongling looked at Li Yundong with her mouth open and tongue-tied. She said, "Is it so exaggerated? These are all lightning retribution masters, not young spirit masters." Zhou Qin's face was also full of disbelief. When she first saw so many lightning retribution masters, she thought they were dead for sure. But now it seemed that Li Yundong was facing the siege of so many masters, but he was still motionless. He was indeed the immovable Wisdom King. Zhou Qin also widened her eyes and stammered, "Master, how can he be so powerful? Shouldn't the cultivators of this era be more powerful?" The Shang dynasty was the last chaotic period in the history of the Chinese cultivation world. After the end of the War of Gods investiture, China entered the Zhou dynasty, and the order of the heaven realm and the mortal realm was established. Almost all the gods in the world were recalled to the heaven realm. Therefore, for the first time in the Chinese cultivation world, a large number of magic and magic treasures were lost. From the Zhou dynasty to the Spring and Autumn Warring States period, and then to the Qin and Han dynasties, it was a period of vacuum in the Chinese cultivation world. From the extreme prosperity of the Xia and Shang dynasties, the Chinese cultivation world fell to the bottom in an instant, and there was a situation of extreme decline. During this period, hundreds of schools of thought contended in the world, and hundreds of flowers bloomed. Various sects were established one after another, which also made the people have many beliefs, and the good and bad cultivators among the people were intermingled. It was not until the Han dynasty that the great Grandmaster Gu Hong appeared and founded the Danding sect. Zhang Daoling, a once-in-a-thousand-years genius, founded the Zhengyi sect, a great cultivation sect that had been passed down for nearly 2,000 years. At this time, the Chinese cultivation world ushered in a second prosperity. This kind of prosperity continued in the tortuous course of history until the end of the Ming dynasty and the beginning of the Qing dynasty, which caused the Chinese cultivation world to slowly fall to the bottom again. It was not until the establishment of the Republic of China and the New China that the cultivation world completely fell to the bottom. During this period, the Chinese cultivation world had lost countless magic and magic treasures. Therefore, modern cultivators had always subconsciously thought that ancient cultivators must be more powerful. However, Zhou Qin and the others had ignored the fact that Li Yunyang was already the incarnation of Wisdom King and had 100% of the power of Wisdom King. The power of Wisdom King not only came from Sakyamuni Buddha, but also from the huge power of faith. Moreover, although the magic and magic treasures of the Chinese cultivation world had been lost in the long river of history, in this long process, there had also been countless amazing cultivators who had created many powerful cultivation methods and magic. Especially in the Xia and Shang dynasties, there were spiritual mountains and rivers everywhere in China, which caused a large number of cultivators to pick these herbs and treasures excessively to refine elixirs or magic treasures. However, the selection of the medicinal materials of these magic medicines and magic treasures was all in units of thousands of years, or even hundreds of years. However, the number of people was always increasing. Slowly, there were too many monks and not enough porridge. Where could they find so many elixirs of thousands of years and hundreds of years? It was also because of this that the Chinese cultivators were running out of resources, and the school of alchemy gradually declined. Zhang Buduan, the founder of the Jindan sect, appeared in the southern Song dynasty. He pointed out that since there were fewer and fewer elixirs, there was no need for us to seek the great way from the outside world. The real great way of Jindan was in our own bodies. At this time, the Naidan sect rose. Although the Naidan Yang spirit cultivated by the Naidan cultivators was relatively slow, its zhenqi was vigorous and majestic, far better than that of those who cultivated by taking elixirs. As long as the difference in strength was not too great, when the two sides fought, the external alchemy sect would almost collapse at the first touch and be completely vulnerable. Therefore, after the Southern Song dynasty, the strength of the Naidan sect surpassed that of the external alchemy at an astonishing speed. Although Li Yundong had entered the Tao with the external alchemy, he was essentially a Niden cultivator. Moreover, the Jindan Yang spirit in his body at this time was condensed and majestic, unparalleled in the world. If he claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. At this time, the cultivators of the Shang dynasty did not cultivate Niden. Almost all of them took elixirs or became immortals without exception. Therefore, in terms of Xueqi and Yang spirit, they were no match for Li Yundong. When Li Yundong showed his ability, he immediately shocked the whole audience. Both sides were so scared that they didn't dare to make a move. Although they both wanted to tear each other into pieces, they didn't dare to act rashly when there was a great master who was hard to distinguish between friend and foe watching from the side. At this time, the leader of the guard standing on the steps of the Deer Terrace Pavilion shouted in fear, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The leader of the Western Zhou rebels blurted out almost at the same time, "Aren't you Tong Tian's sect leader? Then who are you?" Chapter 9:14. Li Yundong didn't want to have anything to do with the two groups of people from the Shang dynasty and the Zhou dynasty at all. Although he had shocked everyone present, he didn't look complacent at all. He smiled slightly, put his palms together, and said in a clear voice, "Amitba, I'm just passing by and will leave soon. Please help yourselves." Although the situation was dangerous and unpredictable, his words almost made Su Chan laugh. Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and the others couldn't help but giggle. Ruan Hongling said in a low voice, "Bah, this guy is not serious again. What kind of monk is he?" It was around 1100 BC, 500 or 600 years before the birth of Sakyamuni Buddha. In other words, he had to wait for the Western sect's leader, Taoist Jie, to abandon Taoism and become a Buddhist. He would then lead Sakyamuni Buddha into Buddhism and worship him as the Lord. He would then transform from Taoist Jie into Amitabha Buddha. At this time, there was only the Ren school, the Jie school, and the Chan school. There was no trace of Buddhism. Li Yundong's actions made the cultivators of the Chan school and the Jie school not recognize any of them. Although they felt that it was strange, they didn't think that there was anything wrong. They all stared at Li Yundong with great vigilance, for fear that if he pounced on them at this time, the other party would take advantage of the situation. If that happened, the consequences would be unimaginable. Li Yundong glanced around and saw that he had successfully shocked the other party. He smiled and stepped back step by step without turning around. As he walked, he said in a low voice, "Are you all stupid? Hurry up and go." Only then did Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and the others wake up as if they had just woken up from a dream. They hurriedly turned around and got into the alley where they had come from. Li Yundong watched the scene vigilantly as he slowly retreated. After a few steps, his figure finally disappeared into the darkness. As soon as he sneaked into the darkness, he let out a long breath. His back was sweating profusely, and he was sweating profusely. Seeing him like this, Zhou Qin couldn't help asking curiously, "Master, didn't I see that you were very powerful just now?" Li Yundong turned his head and glared at her. "Nonsense, these guys are just pawns. I'm not afraid of them, but what if they get angry and call out the big guy behind them? What should I do then?" Zhou Qin asked curiously, "Big guy?" Just as she said that, there was a rumble in Deer Terrace Square. A pillar of light shot up into the sky. When it reached the sky, it split into 7 different colors that spread in all directions. The colorful light extended all the way to the distant horizon. This movement was so loud that Li Yundong and the others looked up at the sky. After the 7 rays of light scattered in all directions, countless cracks suddenly appeared in the thick dark clouds in the sky. An old man riding a deer slowly walked out of it. After a while, a man riding a crane appeared behind him. As soon as Li Yundong saw this, he turned to Zhou Qin and said, "Did you see that? The big one is coming. A golden immortal has appeared." Su Chan was fascinated by the scene. She took his arm and asked, "Yundong, who are these people? Which one are you talking about?" Just as Su Chan was about to point to the sky, she saw more golden immortals appear one after another behind the two of them. Some of these people had robes that fluttered in the wind, while others had long sleeves that danced in the wind. Some of them had a youthful complexion, while some were handsome men. Some of them had strange appearances, while others had beautiful appearances. There were all kinds of men and women, and most of them were riding on rare and exotic beasts. There were deer, cows, cranes, tigers, Pai Xiao, Xueqi, Bai Zhe, Bai En, and many others. The person in the lead was riding on a David's deer. His clothes were as white as snow, and even his eyebrows were white. These golden immortals appeared one after another. There were probably 20 or 30 of them. Su Chan's eyes widened. Li Yundong also looked at Su Chan speechlessly and said, "Can you still be sure who you are asking?" Su Chan laughed dryly and said, "How can there be so many golden immortals?" Li Yundong sighed. "It's really a cloud-piercing arrow. Thousands of troops and horses come to meet. The 12 disciples of Heavenly Lord Yuanshi are all top experts among the golden immortals. I'll be there soon." Xueqi looked terrified and said, "Master we'd better leave quickly. Don't get involved in their affairs." Ruan Hongling also looked up at the golden immortal masters in the sky. She said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 23, 24, oh my God. 24 golden immortals. There are so many golden immortals. If I go back and tell my Xueqi that I've seen so many golden immortal masters, won't she envy me to death? Li Yundong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He glared at her and said, "We'll talk about it when you get back." At this time, Ruan Hongling decided to go all out. She turned to Lin Miao and said, "It's a pity that you don't have your mobile phone with you. Otherwise you could take a photo and post it on the internet." After the fall of the Shang dynasty, Hao Tian the Great had gathered enough people, established the Heavenly Palace, and officially regulated the Heaven Realm. He had stipulated that immortals were not allowed to descend to the mortal world. If any immortals who descended to the mortal world were caught, they would be severely punished. Therefore, it was a big deal to see a golden immortal in the mortal world. Moreover, once a cultivator reached the golden immortal realm, he would soon be summoned by the Heaven Realm to ascend. If there was a golden immortal who was unwilling to ascend, the Heaven Realm would send someone down to destroy the body of the golden immortal and forcibly take him up. In short, it was almost impossible to see a golden immortal in modern society. The probability was even smaller than winning the lottery 10 times in a row. Even if they saw one, they would probably ascend in the blink of an eye. Seeing 24 golden immortals in one go like Ruan Hongling and the others was really unprecedented since the end of the Shang dynasty. Li Yundong looked at Ruan Hongling speechlessly, feeling a headache coming on. He really didn't understand. How could a calm and elegant person like Zi Yuan have such a lively junior sister like Ruan Hongling? At this time, Lin Miao also raised her head, her mouth wide open, almost able to fit her fist. She felt as if she was in a dream and did not reply to Ruan Hongling for a long time. Li Yundong looked at the many golden immortals in the sky and said, "With so many masters pressing down together, even a mountain will be crushed into powder. It seems that even God will perish, and the Western Zhou dynasty will prosper." As he spoke, he suddenly heard an angry snort from the Deer Terrace platform. A figure flew straight into the sky toward the 24 golden immortals. Although it was night, there were colorful lights in the sky at this time, and the fire on the ground was burning the city. The fire soared into the sky, but this person's figure was clearly illuminated. Li Yundong and the others took a closer look and saw that the man was extremely burly, about 2 meters tall. He was wearing a cloak and a golden crown on his head. His face couldn't be seen clearly in the night, but Li Yundong and the others could feel an extremely domineering and majestic aura coming from this man. It was like a flaming volcano, and they could feel a blazing aura coming from him even from a great distance. Xueqi only felt that this person's aura was strong, and it was actually comparable to the power that Li Yundong had shown when he had fought against hundreds of Thunder Retribution Masters. She was suddenly shocked and blurted out, "Who is this person? He's so powerful. Why do I feel that this person's aura is even stronger than those golden immortals?" Li Yundong's face was solemn as he said in a low voice, "I don't know, but he is indeed a strong opponent." As soon as he finished speaking, the old man in the middle said in a clear voice, "King Zhou, you have been Cheng Tang for 400 years, and the destiny of the country has come to an end. Why don't you give up early, lest the people be plunged into misery and suffering?" "This person is King Zhou?" Li Yundong and the others exclaimed in horror. At this time, King Zhou, who was facing more than 20 golden immortals alone in midair, still remained calm. He shouted angrily, "Old thief LV Shang, do you dare to fight with me alone?" "LV Shang?" Su Chan blinked her eyes and said in surprise, "Jiang Zia? This This is Jiang Zia? No way. While they were shouting, Jiang Zia stroked his beard and said slowly, King Zhou, although you are brave, can you defeat the hearts of the people in the world? King Zhou laughed wildly and said, I am the hearts of the people, and I am the will of heaven. After that, he rushed toward these golden immortals without saying a word. Li Yundong and the others saw that King Zhou was incredibly brave and powerful. He rushed into the formation of 24 golden immortals alone and punched and kicked them as if there was no one there. These golden immortals shouted angrily, but no one dared to face the power of King Zhou alone. Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and the others were stunned and speechless for a long time. Su Chan was so shocked that she stammered, Is King Zhou so powerful? He fought against 24 golden immortals alone? Li Yundong frowned slightly and looked at the sky. He looked carefully for a while and suddenly shook his head. It's not like that. Look carefully, these golden immortals seem to have their own plans. No one is willing to fight against King Zhou head-on. They all seem to be deliberately preserving their strength. King Zhou fights this one, but he doesn't save that one. King Zhou fights that one, but he doesn't save that one either. These guys are so disunited. No wonder they can't beat King Zhou. Zhou Qin was shocked and said, But even so, it's too exaggerated. 24 golden immortals. Li Yundong nodded slightly. King Zhou is indeed powerful, but I don't know who is more powerful compared with the mystical silver fox in her heyday. At this time, Ruan Hongling's eyes lit up, and her previous thoughts were rekindled. By the way, King Zhou has come out at this time. The Deer Terrace Pavilion must be empty, right? If we don't sneak in now, when will we? Li Yundong was stunned. He quickly glanced at the sky and nodded slightly. Yes, this is indeed a good opportunity. I think these immortals are busy fighting and shouldn't notice us. Come on, let's go to the Deer Terrace Pavilion. Ruan Hongling was overjoyed. Zhou Qin and Su Chan also nodded quickly and followed Li Yundong carefully. The group of people quickly walked toward the Deer Terrace Pavilion. This paragraph will not be too long. In addition, it will soon be the last chapter of the book. Some readers always ask me if the ending is good or bad. Tang, I repeat it here. Of course, the ending is good. Please rest assured. Chapter 9:15. At this time, Zhaoga City was even more chaotic than before. The Deer Terrace Square was in a mess. The huge bronze tripod, which had stood upright, had also fallen to the side. Blood flowed like a river on the ground. Many cultivators on both sides of the Shang and Zhou dynasties were lying in pools of blood. Most of them had died miserably. They fell to the ground in disorder, and the ground was almost invisible. Li Yundong and the others had a problem walking, but they didn't dare to fly for fear of attracting the attention of others. They had to use the cover of the sky-stretching female seal while carefully moving forward in the sea of corpses and blood. Su Chan had seen more dead people along the way than many people had seen in several lifetimes. Along the way, Su Chan had seen more dead people than many people had seen in several lifetimes combined. She was a little scared and hid behind Li Yunyang. Zhou Qin also slightly covered her nose, unable to stand the soaring smell of blood. Lin Miao saw Ruan Hongling walking while forming a palm with one hand and muttering to herself, so she followed suit and imitated her. The few of them walked slowly along the way. From time to time, there would be a few people fighting beside them, but they did not dare to make a sound. This war between the Shang and Zhou dynasties was not only a war between two dynasties, but it was also a battle between two major cultivation groups and two major sects in the Chinese cultivation world. Li Yundong knew that in this war of God's investiture, except for ancestor Hongjun, the great ancestors of the Three Pure Ones, the Guide Taoist, and the Kundi Taoist, who were extremely respected top experts, would all take part in the battle and fight until the sky was dark. Although the patriarchs of the Three Pure Ones had yet to show themselves, and the treacherous patriarch Subhuti and the Taoist of Guidance had been hiding in the dark and watching all this, it was hard to say when sect leader Tong Tian would be able to fight the four over-gods, Taishang Laozi, Yuan Tianzuan, Patriarch Subhuti, and Amitba all by himself. Li Yundong was now very embarrassed. As an outsider, he had followed the mystical silver fox to the most brilliant era in the Chinese cultivation world. Although Li Yundong knew that the Western Zhou with the support of the clan of Chanism would eventually win, he did not dare to turn to the Western Zhou. Not to mention whether King Wu or Jiang Shang would be willing to ally with him, The enemies of the Western Zhou were a bit terrifying. Needless to say, King Zhou had left an evil poem on the stone pillar of Goddess Hua's palace. Goddess Hua did not dare to deal with him by herself, and sect leader Tong Tian was even more abnormal. At the same time, he fought with Taishang Lao Jun, Yuan Tianzuan, Ancestor Bodhi, and Ba. Although he was defeated in the end, he did not die. Even in anger, he tried to use the immortal killing sword diagram to refine the 4 elements of wind, water, wood, and earth, to open a new world and fight with the Chan school again. If sect leader Hong Jun had not seen the signs of chaos in the Chinese world and brought sect leader Tong Tian to the Purple Palace, the history of China would not have been written like this in the future. Taishang Lao Jun, Yuan Tianzuan, Patriarch Pudi, and Ba. These 4 major gods were worshipped by a sect no matter where they were placed. However, sect leader Tong Tian was able to dominate all 4 of them by himself. His strength was truly unimaginable. Li Yundong was confident in his skills, but he did not dare to be conceited and arrogant to think that he could fight with sect leader Tong Tian while protecting their safety with Ruan Hongling and Lin Miao, 2 burdens. This was simply a fool's dream. However, if he thought that he could successfully attack Zhao Gadir Terrace by hitching a ride with the Western Zhou dynasty, it would be even more unreliable. He was afraid that when the time came, sect leader Tong Tian would fly into a rage and release the immortal slaying sword formation to attack him. That would be terrible. If a master like Yuan Tianzuan entered the immortal slaying sword formation alone, he would also be turned into ashes. If he entered the formation, he would not even have ashes left. As for helping King Zhou to fight against the Zhou dynasty, it was even more unreliable. It was not only going against the current, but also against the natural order. At the very least, even if he helped sect leader Tong Tian defeat the honored lord of the origin, what if he provoked the old ancestor Hong Jun? The reason why Yuan Tianzuan, Taishang Lao Jun, and the others could become like soup for 400 years and could defeat sect leader Tong Tian was that ancestor Hong Jun turned a blind eye to their indulgence. Because sect leader Tong Tian's power and strength had seriously threatened ancestor Hong Jun. That was why Yuan Tianzuan and the others dared to go down to the human world to find trouble with the people of the Jie school. In the final analysis, whether it was Cheng Tang or Ji Zhou, they could not help either. Either side would face a great disaster. As for helping others and enforcing justice on behalf of heaven, immeasurable longevity and blessings, it was better to forget about this kind of thing. It was better for them to die than for themselves. Everyone, take your time to fight. I will not help either side. Everyone, each for your own master, mind your own business. With this idea in mind, even if there were people around Li Yundong and the others who were beaten to a pulp, with their heads chopped off and their arms and legs flying in all directions, they could only pretend that they did not see it. They stared blankly all the way and hurried with all their might. It was a distance of several kilometers from the west side of the square to the east side. With the cultivation of Li Yundong and the others, they could really reach it in a few leaps. However, at this time, the road was full of potholes, and they stumbled along. It felt like they had walked for centuries. When they finally arrived at the foot of the Deer Terrace Pavilion, the side was finally empty. There was no longer a thick layer of corpses under their feet, but a hard bluestone staircase. Even though Li Yundong's cultivation was high, he could not help but feel a chill down his spine when he stepped into the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. There was a terrifying massacre in front of him, and his ears were full of wailing and killing. Li Yundong looked back at Su Chan and the others, only to see that they were all pale, as if they had just rolled in hell. He did not have time to comfort the little girl, so he pulled her and continued forward. When they got up the stairs, they saw a towering and majestic palace standing in front of them. The first thing they saw was a row of huge stone pillars. Each of these stone pillars was 40 to 50 meters high, and it would take more than a dozen adult men to wrap their arms around them. The stone pillars were either carved with beautiful goddesses or charming flying fairies. Standing under these stone pillars, Li Yundong, who was tall, was really as small as an ant. When he looked up, he could hardly see the top of the palace. Li Yundong looked at it and sighed, saying, although there must have been the help of cultivators, how much manpower and material resources would it have taken to build such a magnificent and exquisite palace? At this time, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and the others also looked up at the magnificent palace. They were so shocked that they could not speak. Zhou Qin shook her head and said, even without Daji, I'm afraid that after this palace was built, King Zhou's country would not be stable. Li Yundong smiled and said, without Daji, I'm afraid that King Zhou might not have built this palace. After sighing for a while, they walked along the huge and deep palace corridors. Along the way, they saw screens and painted walls that stretched on endlessly. Everywhere were colorful paintings and unique divine statues. As Li Yundong and the others walked, they admired the flowers. But when they reached the inside of the palace, they saw that the extremely spacious and huge palace was filled with smoke, as if there was a fairy aura. Although there was an earth-shattering battle outside and a river of blood, this place was still mysterious and ethereal, like a fairyland. Li Yundong and the others looked up and saw that there were beautiful murals on the palace. There were many fairies and gods painted on them. They were full of color and lifelike. On the ground, there was a huge pool. In the pool, there were 4 white carvings of the 4 divine beasts: azure dragon, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and white tiger. These 4 divine beasts opened their mouths and spat out a steady stream of hot water. The hot water gathered in the pool and evaporated into a mist, enveloping everything in the palace, making it look mysterious and deep. Before Li Yundong had time to enjoy the wonderful scenery in the palace, he suddenly found that the sky goddess seal shrouding them had suddenly disappeared, and in an instant, their figures appeared in the palace. Li Yundong was stunned and suddenly felt that the palace was filled with an inexplicable great power. He immediately turned to Su Chan and Xueqi and said, "Something is wrong here. Let's get out." As soon as his voice fell, he heard a faint voice suddenly ring out in the palace. "Since you're here, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Do you think that my Jade Lake is a place where you can come and go as you please?" The voice exuded a sense of decadence. The soft and charming voice was enough to melt the iron bones of any man of iron into molten iron. Li Yundong only heard one sentence, but he felt as if there was a strange fragrance around him. His whole body became soft and he could not summon any strength. His heart trembled. His hands quickly pinched a finger, and he said in a deep voice, "Who is it?" The voice said faintly, "I should be the one asking who you are. In this world, there is actually someone who doesn't know me?" While speaking, the mist in the jade pool of the palace twisted and rotated violently, slowly converging into the shape of a white fox. The white fox was lifelike, with 9 tails floating in the air behind it, circling around Li Yundong and the others. Li Yundong was shocked and vigilant. He said word by word, "Su Daiji." "Ha ha ha." Su Daiji giggled. "It seems that you still know me." Xueqi, Su Chan, and the others were nervous and curious at this time. They opened their eyes wide and looked at the mist, as if they wanted to see the real body of Su Daiji through the heavy mist, to see what this 1,000-year-old witch looked like. Li Yundong saw the mist around him twisting and rolling, sometimes turning into a 9-tailed celestial fox running and jumping, and sometimes into a charming woman, teasing and seducing. His 10 fingers flew, both hands made vajra fists, the left index finger straight, and the right little finger wrapped around the first joint of the left index finger, while the left index finger supported the first joint of the right thumb. It was the wisdom fist seal of Vairocana's Bodhi Guidance first wisdom seal, which could destroy the nameless darkness. As soon as Li Yundong made this Mahamudra, the constantly changing mist around him suddenly dispersed in all directions. Like a strong wind, the mist in the palace was swept clean, revealing the deep inner hall. Su Daiji's voice was slightly surprised. "You're very powerful. It seems that you are also here to kill me. Were you sent by King Wu? Oh, you men, are heartless, incorruptible, and shameless. After using me, you kicked me away. Not only did you betray me, but you also poured dirty water on me. Alas, this 400-year-old empire is destined to be buried in the hands of the Chonism. What does this have to do with me?" Su Daiji said faintly. Her voice was full of grievance, as if a pitiful resentful woman was quietly complaining about her grievances in her boudoir. Although Li Yundong could not see her face, his heart was hooked and his sympathy was greatly aroused. He wished that he could go through water and tread on fire for her. Li Yundong exclaimed in his heart, "No wonder such a wise and powerful person like King Zhou would be fascinated by her. I can't see her, but my Taoist heart is almost shaken just by hearing her voice. What if I see her in person? Amazing, really amazing." Li Yundong calmed down and said, "Su Daiji, we are not Chengtang, nor are we from Western Zhou." Su Daiji said in surprise, "You are not from King Wu's side? Nor are you from my king's side? Then..." As she said this, her voice became cold. Could it be that you are the person sent by Her Majesty to kill me? As she said this, her voice suddenly became incomparably fierce. Well, since she is heartless, then don't blame me for being heartless. As soon as Su Daiji's voice fell, a figure rushed out from the depths of the palace like lightning. 9 white foxtails fiercely attacked Li Yundong. These few days are going to be very busy. I have to go to Beijing for business next week, so the updates will probably be slow. However, I will promise to update continuously. I can only update once today. I apologize to everyone. Chapter 9:16. Li Yundong saw the 9 white foxtails at a glance and was slightly stunned. He thought to himself, why are they not golden foxtails, but white? He didn't have time to think too much. He pinched his fingers and slapped forward with a Mahamudra. With a buzzing sound, the 9 white foxtails rushed over angrily and hit Li Yundong's golden Mahamudra. It was as if they had hit a hard rock wall angrily. In an instant, they turned into countless broken flowers and scattered everywhere. They were completely vulnerable. Su Daiji was shocked. She hadn't expected that the opponent she had met would be so powerful. Her voice trembled slightly with fear and shock. Who are you? How can you be so powerful? Li Yundong also felt strange in his heart. He knew that if she was really at the level of a 9-tailed celestial fox like the mystical silver fox, there was no reason for her to be defeated in a fight with him. But after thinking for a while, Li Yundong suddenly understood. It was true that Su Daiji was a 9-tailed celestial fox, but it was not necessarily true how powerful she was in fighting, how high her cultivation was, and how fierce she was in PK. If she was really so powerful, why did she have to take such a big detour to deal with King Zhou according to Goddess Was idea? Why didn't she just go straight into the palace? Although the end of the Shang dynasty marked the end of the most dazzling and mysterious historical period of the Chinese cultivation world, with the rise of Taoism, Buddhism, and other cultivation sects, many new cultivation methods and spells were developed. This also made the level of cultivation in the world of cultivation continue to advance, and there was no regression due to the huge gap in the middle. Especially at the end of the Tang dynasty, the mystical silver fox appeared out of nowhere. For the first time, she perfectly combined the cultivation methods and magic of Buddhism and Taoism. She became the first cultivator in the history of Chinese cultivation to cultivate both Buddhism and Taoism and reach the highest level. She was more than 600 years earlier than Wu Shouyang, the founder of the Wu Lu sect of the immortal and Buddhist sects in the Middle and Late Ming dynasty. If she didn't use powerful magical weapons, the mystical silver fox's fighting strength in her heyday was not inferior to that of the 3 pure ones. Li Yundong had fought fiercely with the mystical silver fox and learned her power. Naturally, he thought that Su Daiji was as powerful as her. He even vaguely felt that Su Daiji was even more powerful than the mystical silver fox. But when he came into contact with her, he realized that it was not the case at all. Su Daiji was not weak, but she was the same as the cultivators of this era. She had the same drawback and weakness. If his inner core was not condensed, his golden body would not be sturdy. Due to this era being the age of chaos, deities were everywhere. Even a legendary figure like Ancestor Hong Jun frequently roamed the mortal world, let alone the 3 clear ones and the other deities. Most of the magic treasures in the hands of these immortals were extremely domineering. Whether it was the Shenyuan sword, the 4 immortal killing swords, the flipping sky seal, or the 9 dragons fire shield, they were all terrifying magic treasures that could kill masters at the golden immortal level in seconds. When the mystical silver fox encountered them, she could only run away. Therefore, the number of spells created by the cultivators of this era was far less than that of the later generations. Therefore, in PK fights, it mostly depended on whose magical weapon was more powerful. Therefore, they did not pay much attention to their own personal cultivation. The most famous example was the founder of the soy sauce party in China, the strongest leader of the soy sauce party in history. Immortal Huang Long was the second disciple of the honored Lord of the Origin, only below Guang Qingzi, the teacher of the Yellow Emperor Shenyuan. However, because of his poor background, he was despised by the honored Lord of the Origin, who valued him very much. However, he was also a disciple of the honored Lord of the Origin by Ancestor Hong Jun, so he did not get a magic treasure from the honored Lord of the Origin. He had the cultivation of a golden immortal, but he was empty-handed and did not have a single Dharma treasure. Therefore, in the Great War of the Gods, Huang Long Zhenren suffered a crushing defeat in every battle and was chased by others until he had to flee in a sorry state. It could be said that he was defeated again and again and again. He was a complete weakling. In terms of cultivation, Su Daiji was not necessarily as high as immortal Huang Long. She was also the personal concubine of King Zhou, so it was naturally impossible for her to have a magic treasure with her. Therefore, when she fought with Li Yundong, she was immediately defeated. This defeat made her feel frightened and uneasy. It was the first time that she had met such a powerful cultivator with bare hands. The idea of killing Li Yundong and the others was immediately dispelled. She didn't even have the mood to say anything harsh. She turned around and wanted to escape. But just as she was about to escape, a figure flashed out from the side in an instant. 7 golden foxtails attacked Su Daiji like lightning and thunder. Su Daiji was shocked. She had never dreamed that someone of her kind would attack her here. Just as she was about to be tightly entangled by the 7 golden foxtails, Li Yundong and Su Chan shouted at the same time, "Mystical silver fox." In an instant, 9 foxtails appeared behind Su Chan. 7 of them spread on the ground like a waterfall, like a thick layer of white velvet carpet. The other 2 quickly pounced on the mystical silver fox like spiritual snakes. Li Yundong had been vigilant against the appearance of the mystical silver fox. As soon as he saw the 7 golden foxtails, he immediately slapped them without hesitation. As soon as the mystical silver fox came into contact with Li Yundong's Mahamudra, there was a loud bang, and her figure appeared in an instant. At this time, the mystical silver fox didn't have a cauldron as her body, but her young spirit was outside. Although Li Yundong's cultivation was lower than that of the mystical silver fox before, he had obtained the power of Wisdom King. Therefore, when he came into contact with the mystical silver fox without a cauldron as her body, they were on par with each other. As soon as the figure of the mystical silver fox appeared, she immediately flashed and hid in the mist of the palace. She shouted sternly, "Immovable Wisdom King, won't you give me a way to live?" Li Yundong snorted angrily, "Give me back Chao Kefi's soul and divine sense, and I'll let you go." The mystical silver fox said angrily, "Bull*T, she is my life. She is me, and I am her. Why should I give it back to you?" Li Yundong said angrily, "She already has her own life and life. You can't impose your fate on her. Even if you get all her souls back, so what?" The 2 of them moved quickly in this huge palace. Their figures were extremely fast, and they almost separated as soon as they touched each other. 1 second, they were fighting beside the pool on the east side of the palace, and the next second, they appeared on the west side of the palace. At this time, Su Daiji was completely confused. She didn't know the origin of Li Yundong, and she didn't understand the origin of the mystical silver fox either. In particular, the mystical silver fox and Su Chan were both fox demons. Why did they appear here? How could they be so powerful? When did fox demons become so powerful? Su Daiji was a little confused, but she soon realized that this was not the place to stay for a long time. She gritted her teeth and turned around to escape. The mystical silver fox had been lurking in this palace. Before, because of the existence of King Zhou, she did not dare to act rashly. It was not easy for her to wait for King Zhou to leave before she dared to move around to look for Su Daiji. When she finally found it and was ready to make a move, Li Yundong, the enemy who had been haunting her, came out again. The mystical silver fox was so angry that her teeth itched. If anger could kill people, Li Yundong would have been killed by her hundreds of times. While dealing with Li Yundong, the mystical silver fox paid attention to Su Daiji's movements. When she saw that Su Daiji was going to escape, she would not let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She immediately rushed towards Su Daiji. She moved like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, she pounced on Su Daiji's back. She stretched out her hand and slapped down on the top of Su Daiji's head. Li Yundong's reaction was also very fast. In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind the mystical silver fox and slapped down on her back. If the mystical silver fox didn't stop to block this attack, she would immediately be slapped by Li Yundong to the point that her young spirit would scatter and she would suffer a great loss. However, the mystical silver fox was the mystical silver fox after all. Her 7 foxtails appeared in an instant and swept toward Li Yundong. Su Chan was shocked and immediately controlled her 2 golden foxtails to block in front of Li Yundong. With Su Chan's protection, Li Yundong had no worries. He slapped at the mystical silver fox and shouted angrily, Surrender, mystical silver fox. You can't win. The mystical silver fox turned around quickly and glanced at Su Chan with hatred. A flash of lightning flashed in her eyes. When her palms touched Li Yundong, her body immediately shook and she was blasted up horizontally. In a moment, she made a big hole in the palace, and her body also flew out. Although the mystical silver fox's body was blasted away, her 7 foxtails were extremely wide and long. With a roll of her foxtails, she wrapped Li Yundong, Su Daiji, and Su Chan in it and pulled them out. Li Yundong and the others were caught off guard and were pulled out of the Deer Terrace Pavilion Palace. At this time, a green light flashed. It was Xueqi who finally seized the opportunity to control the Qi and fiercely slashed at the mystical silver fox. Although she couldn't hurt the mystical silver fox, this sneak attack distracted the mystical silver fox a lot. Li Yundong took the opportunity to shout loudly, and all the Xueqi in his body burst out. He shook his body and turned into the real body of Wisdom King with 3 heads and 6 arms. His 6 arms pulled one of the mystical silver fox's foxtails, threw her hard, and threw her back into the palace. However, the remaining tail of the mystical silver fox twisted in the air and was tightly entangled with Su Chan's golden foxtail. In a moment, Su Chan and her fell into the palace again. Li Yundong was shocked and shouted, "Chaner!" Just as he was about to fly back to the palace, he suddenly heard a loud bang in the sky, as if the primordial chaos had just begun. Thunder exploded, and countless golden lights shot straight toward the Deer Terrace Pavilion Palace, enveloping it in an instant. Li Yundong's powerful cultivation was pushed away and bounced aside when he came into contact with the golden light. Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao were also shaken out of the wall. Fortunately, Ruan Hongling reacted quickly and wrapped herself and Lin Miao with her powerful magical weapon, the red caltrip handkerchief. When they were blasted out of the hall, they were not injured. However, there was no news from the mystical silver fox and Su Chan in the palace. Not only were they not ejected, but they could not move. As soon as they landed on the ground, they saw countless golden lights around them, like countless thin vines, firmly binding them. The more they struggled, the tighter the binding became. Su Daiji, who was in midair, was almost entangled by the golden light. However, when Li Yundong threw the mystical silver fox down the palace, she took the opportunity to escape and ran wildly into the distance. Only then did she escape. At this time, when she saw the abnormality, she looked back and was so shocked that her face changed dramatically. She said in a trembling voice, "Goddess, you are so cruel. You set up this magic circle that is specially designed to restrain us fox demons. Could it be that you want to silence me before you can be at ease?" Although Li Yundong was far away from her, he heard her words clearly. His face changed, and he immediately flew toward Su Daiji and shouted, "What did you say?" Chapter 9:17. Su Daiji had fought with Li Yundong before, and she had collapsed at the first touch. She was really scared by Li Yundong. When she saw Li Yundong flying over, she was so shocked that her face turned pale. "Don't come over." After that, she turned around and ran away. Seeing that she was about to escape, Li Yundong was very anxious, but he was worried about Su Chan's safety, so he didn't dare to chase after her. He gritted his teeth, held the Akalanatha seal in his hand, and rushed into the golden light formation. His body was like a cannonball, and he hit the golden light. There was a buzzing sound, and the golden light shot out in all directions, but Li Yundong was bounced out in an instant. Li Yundong was shocked. He looked at Su Chan, who was struggling in pain in the magic formation, and his heart was burning with anxiety. He gritted his teeth, turned his head, and shouted at Xueqi, "Hurry up and find a place to hide. I'm going to catch Daiji and ask her." As soon as Li Yundong finished speaking, he pounced on Su Daiji like lightning. Although Su Daiji fled first, she was caught up by Li Yundong before she could fly far. She saw that there was no way to escape, and King Zhou was tightly entangled by the 24 golden immortals, who were scattered to save her. She immediately flew to the ground, wanting to turn into a little fox and escape. How could Li Yundong allow her to escape? With a loud shout, he put his hands together and slammed them on the ground. Su Daiji only felt a huge force enveloping her body, making her unable to move. It was as if she was carrying Mount Tai on her back. Not to mention wanting to change, it was impossible for her to even have a little bit of luck. Su Daiji fell to the ground with a howl, lying in the dusty woodland. She turned her head and looked at Li Yundong, who was quickly approaching with a murderous look in her eyes. She couldn't help laughing miserably. She looked up at the sky and shouted, "Goddess, you are so cruel!" Su Daiji cried out. At this time, Li Yundong had already caught up with her. Li Yundong saw that Daiji had her back to him. She was wearing a long red dress, and her figure was graceful. The feet that were exposed outside the dress were as white as jade, especially her 10 small fingernails, which were smeared with cardamom and cinnabar, which made her look indescribably romantic. However, Li Yundong didn't have time to appreciate the beauty of this generation of enchantress. He turned his hand and slapped the top of Su Daiji's head. "Tell me, what kind of magic formation is that? What was so mysterious about it? How do we break it?" His palm hovered an inch away from the top of Su Daiji's head. As long as he patted down a little more, this enchantress of this generation would die in his hands. Su Daiji turned around at this moment. Her eyes were filled with tears, and her face was sad. All right. I didn't expect that I would die in your hands today." She raised her neck and closed her eyes. "Come on, kill me." Only then did Li Yundong see Su Daiji's appearance clearly. He saw that Su Daiji had a small oval face and charming eyebrows. Although her eyes were closed, the slightly upturned corners of her eyes made her look like there was infinite charm hidden between her eyebrows. Li Yundong was shocked, not because of how shockingly beautiful Su Daiji was, but because the enchantress in front of him looked exactly like Su Chan. Li Yundong looked at Su Daiji with his mouth agape, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. He stammered, how could you? Su Daiji closed her eyes and waited for a while. Seeing that there was no movement, she opened her eyes and saw Li Yundong looking at her in shock. She couldn't help but sneer disdainfully in her heart, but her face revealed a charming and seductive expression. "Are you reluctant to kill me? I know, all the men in the world are like you when they see me." Li Yundong was furious. He raised his palm and slapped Su Daiji again. The shocking wind from the palm hit Su Daiji's cheek, causing her to scream in pain. She covered her cheek and fell to the ground. Li Yundong shouted angrily, "Tell me, what kind of magic formation is this and how to break it?" Su Daiji was so scared that her heart was pounding. She didn't dare to tease Li Yundong anymore. She said in a trembling voice, "This is the heavenly demon subduing formation created by goddess Nuwa. It is used to restrain our demon fox clan. Back then, the goddess told me that if I didn't follow her instructions, she would use this magic formation to take me in." As she said this, tears welled up in her eyes. "But now that I have followed her instructions, she still wants to take me in. Why are all of you like this? Why do you all want me to die? What did I do wrong? Why does Chung Tang want to destroy the country that he has built for 400 years? Why does he want to blame me for this? Everyone in the world knows that this is the idea of the goddess, Patriarch Subhuti, and Patriarch Hongjun." Su Daiji was a peerless beauty. No matter how she ranked the world's beauties, no matter what aesthetic standard she used, she would definitely be ranked in the top 5. A woman's tears were the most powerful weapon for a man. Even an Iron Man would be soft-hearted when she cried and complained about something, let alone a man like Li Yundong who had tender feelings for women. Li Yundong's face was cold, and his tone softened a little. He said in a deep voice, "I only ask you, how can we break this magic formation?" Su Daiji said sadly, "Who in the world can break the magic formation set up by the goddess herself?" Li Yundong's face suddenly turned pale. His body swayed and he said in a trembling voice, "Impossible, there must be a way." Su Daiji shook her head and cried sadly, "If the goddess wants someone to die, no one can escape this calamity." Although the goddess is not very good at fighting, her scheming methods and magic formations are unparalleled in the world. You can't beat her. You'd better kill me. Li Yundong raised his hand and looked at the beautiful woman in front of him, who looked as charming as Su Chan, looking at him with tears in her eyes. In an instant, Su Chan's voice and smile appeared in front of him. Although his heart was burning with anxiety, how could he do it? He closed his eyes in pain, waved his hand, and said in a trembling voice, "You can go." Su Daiji's eyes widened, and she could hardly believe her ears. "What? You're willing to let me go? Aren't you afraid that the goddess will make trouble for you?" Li Yundong smiled bitterly. "She will make trouble for me? If anything happens to my Choner, I will kill my way into her palace, burn it down, and kill her to avenge my Choner. Su Daiji's pretty face turned pale when she heard this. She looked at Li Yundong up and down seriously. For the first time, she looked at the man in front of her seriously. Who is Choner? Why are you so infatuated with her? Li Yundong looked deeply at the enchantress in front of him, who looked exactly like Su Chan, and sighed. You don't know her. She's like you, a fox demon, but her cultivation is not as high as yours. She's only an 8-tailed fox. Su Daiji suddenly said, could it be the 8-tailed fox with 2 golden tails? Li Yundong took a deep breath and said with a sullen face, go before I change my mind. I want to save my Choner. No matter how difficult the magic formation is, I will save her. As he said this, he turned around and was about to leave. Su Daiji looked at him and suddenly said, hey, this magic formation was refined by the goddess using the 9-colored rainflower stone and Mount Buzhou. It can't be broken from the outside. It can only be broken from the inside. Li Yundong was overjoyed and turned around like a gust of wind. He widened his eyes and grabbed Su Daiji's arm tightly with both hands. Then how can I get in? Su Daiji was in pain from his grip, but she didn't dare to cry out loudly. She said in a trembling voice, you can't get in. Once the magic formation is activated, no one can get in, even the goddess herself. Only if the power of the people inside is stronger than the magic formation can they break out. Li Yundong was stunned when he heard this, and his eyes were full of despair. Stronger than the power of the magic formation? Even I can't get in. How can Choner's power become stronger than this magic formation? At this time, Su Daiji only felt that Li Yundong's hands were like iron hoops, tighter and tighter. She couldn't bear the pain and cried out loudly, it hurts. Only then did Li Yundong come to his senses. He looked at the delicate beauty in front of him, who looked like Su Chan, looking at him with tears in her eyes. His heart immediately softened, and he slowly let go of his hands. He asked unwillingly in a trembling voice, is there no other way besides this? Su Daiji looked at Li Yundong timidly and shook her head. No. Li Yundong raised his head and roared. He turned around and flew toward the magic formation where Su Chan was trapped. His voice came from afar. Go. Su Daiji looked in the direction where Li Yundong had disappeared, and a strange light flashed in her eyes. She suddenly shouted, you saved my life. I will definitely repay you in my next life. After that, she knelt down and kowtowed 3 times in the direction where Li Yundong had left. After getting up, Su Daiji's expression changed. She looked at the sky, gritted her teeth, and pointed at the sky. She shouted sternly, Goddess, you are so heartless. It was obviously Patriarch Subhoodie who played tricks to frame DXIN, but you pushed me into the fire pit. Now that you have succeeded, you are afraid that future generations will criticize you. You want to kill me to keep my mouth shut. How vicious you are. Su Daiji cursed, and the more she cursed, the more her body trembled. Patriarch Hongjun, you are so shameless. You are the god of gods, but you have a crooked brain on an ordinary emperor in the human world. You watched them frame me, but you were indifferent. How cold you are. Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, you are so shameless. You are the head of the 3 pure ones, but you used such a despicable method to plot against your junior brother's foundation. You watched hundreds of millions of people fall into the flames of war, just to fulfill your personal grudge. How vicious you are. Taoist Kundi, you are so despicable. You are the Western sect master, but you have a covetous heart. For your own selfish desires, you ignited the flames of war in the world and framed a wise emperor. How despicable you are. The more Su Daiji scolded, the more agitated she became. She cursed the gods in the sky one after another. In the end, she grabbed her long hair that almost touched the ground and used her sharp fingernails to lift it. She immediately broke a section of her beautiful hair. She pointed to the sky and swore, from today onwards, my 9-tailed celestial fox clan will no longer have anything to do with the gods of the heaven realm. If I, Su Daiji, am successful in my cultivation in the future, I will definitely take revenge. If I am unsuccessful in this life, I will swear on my broken hair that if my 9-tailed fox clan has a reincarnated celestial fox in my next life, I will definitely kill my way up to the 9 heavens and kill all of you hypocritical and sinister immortals. Su Daiji forcefully placed the broken hair in her hand on the ground. The black hair fluttered in the air for a while. As soon as it landed on the ground, there was a loud rumble of thunder, followed by a heavy downpour. Su Daiji sneered and looked at the deep and cold sky. Without saying anything else, she turned around and disappeared into the rainstorm forest in an instant. She could no longer be seen. This is the update on the 18th. I was too busy and only started writing it very late. Sorry everyone, don't wait anymore. It's too late. I will wake up early tomorrow morning to write it. Chapter 9:18. Li Yunyang was worried about Su Chan's safety, so he rushed to the palace of Deer Terrace Pavilion anxiously. But at this time, King Zhou, who was fighting with the gods above Deer Terrace Pavilion, was also anxious. Although he was fighting with 24 golden immortals, he was very observant. When he saw that Su Daiji had escaped from the magic formation, but was being chased by Li Yunyang, he was even more anxious. King Zhou wanted to save Daiji, but how could 24 golden immortals be weak? Although they each had their own ulterior motives, some of them were unwilling to do their best, and some of them were like Taoist Huanglong who was shouting on the side, but they were almost onlookers. King Zhou couldn't defeat these 24 golden immortals, but it was difficult for him to escape from their siege. He was so angry that his roars were earth-shattering. However, none of the 24 golden immortals dared to fight with King Zhou directly. Almost all those who had powerful magical weapons were using them to resist, and those who didn't had no powerful magical weapons were watching from afar. When King Zhou attacked, they ran away. When King Zhou left, they scolded. Those who were more capable would use some magic to provoke King Zhou. Although Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao were worried about Su Chan and kept looking at the palace, they were also shocked by King Zhou's roar, which could almost pierce their eardrums. Lin Miao had also read the legend of deification and knew something about King Zhou, but she really didn't know that King Zhou was so powerful. She covered her ears and said in a trembling voice, "This King Zhou is really powerful." To be fair, King Zhou, who was also known as Dxian, was indeed a rare emperor in the history of China, who was good at both literature and martial arts. Among the emperors of China, there were only a few who were famous for their bravery and martial arts. Among them, except for King Zhou, the one with the highest martial arts was Zhao Kuangyin, the founder of the Song dynasty. Zhao Kuangyin's kung fu was passed on to ancestor Chen Tuan. He was originally the most insignificant pawn. Relying on a staff and a pair of fists, he was invincible all over the world. He killed countless people on the battlefield in his life, and forcibly climbed from a small soldier to the position of emperor. The Taizu's long fist and Taizu's staff technique were created by Zhao Kuangyin. In China's martial arts, there were still famous moves such as the great ancestor inspecting the horse. Similarly, Tang Taizong, Li Shimin, was also one of the few emperors who was skilled in martial arts. During the heroic era of the Sui and Tang dynasties, Li Shimin was known as the #1 archer in the world. He often fought with Yuqi Jingda, the #1 archer in the world, on the battlefield. Among them were Emperor Gaozu of Han, Liu Bang, who beheaded the snake and rebelled, Xiang Yu the conqueror of Chu, who carried 1,000 caddies of strength, Zhu Yuanzhang, the Emperor Taizu of Ming, who chased and killed tens of thousands of Yuan soldiers with only a few of his brothers. However, if all the emperors of China were to fight together, they might not be able to defeat King Zhou alone. The reason was very simple. King Zhou lived in the last years of the Shang dynasty, in the most brilliant and prosperous period of the world of cultivation. In this era, everyone was cultivating, and those with a little bit of family background were great cultivators. King Zhou was a descendant of the emperor, so naturally, there was no reason for him not to cultivate. His talent was too amazing, and he had the financial resources of a country to support his cultivation. His cultivation was so high that it was simply unimaginable for others. Sun Zi? Fei Xiangpian commented on King Xian. He was tall and beautiful, the best in the world. His muscles were so strong that he could defeat 100 people. Records of the Grand Historian? Yin Benji also commented on King Zhou. Emperor Zhou was talented in discerning diseases, very sensitive in hearing and seeing, outstanding in material strength, and could fight ferocious beasts. Even the people of Zhou, who had defeated King Zhou and tried their best to smear him, had to admit that Emperor Zhou was gifted with intelligence and keen in hearing and seeing. He was slightly older and had outstanding physical strength, so he had the power to pull 9 bulls and the power to change pillars. In history, a person should not only be compared vertically, but also horizontally. Although Xiangyu was also so strong that he could defeat 100 people, Xiangyu and King Zhou lived in different eras, so his enemies were naturally different. Xiangyu's enemies were ordinary people, or at most, martial artists. However, King Zhou's enemies were 100 cultivators. In history, the strongmen who could pull 9 bulls were mostly water buffaloes, cattle, or yellow oxen in the human world. In the Shang dynasty, where divine beasts were everywhere and immortals were as numerous as dogs, what kind of ox did King Zhou pull? It was the green ox, the one-legged ox. Volume 900 of Taiping Royal Reading quoted from the Song Gao Ji. There was a pine tree on the mountain that was thousands of years old, and its essence became the green ox. Mountain and Sea Scripture? The Eastern Scripture of Great Wilderness described the Xueqi ox as follows. It was shaped like an ox, with no horns and one leg. When it entered and exited the water, there would be wind and rain. Its light was like the sun and the moon, and its sound was like thunder. Its name was Xueqi. As for what kind of divine beasts the green ox and the Xueqi ox were and what kind of power they had, one could tell by looking at their respective masters. The green ox was the mount of Taishang Lao Jun, and the Xueqi ox was the mount of Tong Tian. How could the mounts chosen by the 2 main deities of the 3 pristine ones be easy to deal with? King Zhou's strength to pull the 9 bulls was simply earth-shattering. King Zhou's bravery and strength made him invincible in the world. He unified the southeast, Dongyi, and the plains. Even the founder of the Heavenly Dynasty, Lao Mao, commented that King Zhou was actually a very capable man who was good at both literature and martial arts. If Western Zhou had not received the support and help of the Clan of Enlightenment and the tacit approval of Patriarch Hong Jun, Ji Chong would never have dared to rebel even if he was 100 times braver. However, although King Zhou was brave and fierce, he also had his limitations. He had been fighting and killing all year round and was good at close combat. He was proud of his bravery and disdained to use magic arts and magic treasures. He thought that he could defeat all his enemies with the power of his fists. Because of this, King Zhou was entangled by 24 golden immortals. He wanted to fight to the death, but they kept kiting him. He wanted to rush out to save Su Daiji, but they were like maggots attached to bones, following him closely. The development of cultivation methods and magic in this era was far less developed than that of the later generations. King Zhou did not know the Yang spirit doppelganger, so he could only chase one person at a time. But whoever he chased would turn around and run away. King Zhou could not catch up with them even if he wanted to, which made him furious. King Zhou stood in the air, pointed at a golden immortal and shouted angrily, "Guang Chengzi, do you dare to fight against me?" Guang Chengzi, the teacher of the Yellow Emperor Shen Yuan and the head of the famous Golden Immortals, pointed at King Zhou without hesitation and said, "There is no need to talk about rules when dealing with a tyrant like you. Everyone go." King Zhou was angry. "I talked about a one-on-one fight with you, but you talked about a group fight with me. Good. Very good." He couldn't help but let loose a torrent of curses. As a descendant of an emperor, the endless obscenities coming out of his mouth were truly eye-popping. However, these golden immortals were really powerful. They all pretended to be deaf and dumb, and just kept attacking him. At this time, Li Yundong had already rushed back. As soon as he arrived, he only glanced at King Zhou, who was being besieged, and had no intention of saving him. Soon, he withdrew his gaze and shouted at Su Chan, who was in the golden light formation. "Choner, can you hear me?" Through the broken hole in the palace, he could see that Su Chan was lying in the golden light at this time. Her body was lying on the ground, almost motionless. The 2 golden foxtails, which had been twisting strangely, also drooped down, and there was no movement at all. Li Yundong's heart sank when he saw this, and he couldn't help but rush toward the formation. "Choner, how are you? Are you all right?" As soon as his body touched the golden pillar of light, he was immediately bounced away and sent flying far away. At this time, Su Chan, who was in the formation, finally moved a little. Her body trembled slightly, and she struggled to raise her head. Her lips moved, but she could no longer make a sound. She seemed to be saying in a trembling voice, "Yundong, go." Li Yundong's eyes were bloodshot. He was so angry that he wanted to go crazy. He raised his fists and smashed them at the golden light formation like crazy. His smash caused a deafening rumble, and even the heavens and the earth shook. The 24 golden immortals, who were fighting fiercely with King Zhou, felt as if they had returned to the era when Gonggong and Xuanqiu fought for the throne. Gonggong was defeated and touched Mount Buzhou in anger. At this moment, it seemed that Mount Buzhou, which supported heaven and earth, had collapsed, and the earth had been torn apart. The momentum was so terrible that it made people's expressions change. The attention of the 24 golden immortals was slightly distracted. At this time, the pressure on King Zhou was greatly reduced. He turned his head to look at Li Yundong, and the fire in his heart was really vented on Li Yundong. "Where is my beloved concubine? Where is Daji? What did you do to her?" Li Yundong's mind was in a mess now. How could he be in the mood to pay attention to him? He just kept attacking the formation crazily with red eyes. Seeing that Li Yundong didn't even look at him, King Zhou was really angry, and he became bold. With a roar, he rushed toward Li Yundong. Li Yundong only felt a gust of wind behind him, and an extremely terrible force slapped him from behind. In his anger, he turned around without hesitation and slapped him with his palm. With a loud bang, Li Yundong and King Zhou collided head-on. Both of them trembled and flew backward. As the reincarnation of Wisdom King, Li Yundong's divine power could be imagined, and King Zhou was also the divine power king who rarely met an opponent. In this head-on fight with Li Yundong, he was really well matched. He couldn't help but let out a long roar and almost burst into tears in his heart. F***ck, I've been kite all my life. Finally, I met an opponent who dared to fight me head-on. King Zhou was full of anger. Not to mention that Li Yundong was concerned about the safety of Daji. Even if he was just a passerby, King Zhou would still, "No matter who you are, I'll beat you first." Li Yundong was burning with anxiety, but King Zhou intervened forcefully. In a fit of rage, he glared at King Zhou and roared, "Get out of my way!" King Zhou also shouted angrily, "Where is my Daji? Did you kill her?" Both of them were like erupting volcanoes. Without saying a word, they immediately fought. They punched and kicked each other, all of which were close combat moves. Banging sounds could be heard as they fought, which made the faces of the onlookers turn pale. The 24 golden immortals looked at each other and were somewhat confused. They had no idea where Li Yundong came from and why he was entangled with King Zhou. LV Shang pointed at Li Yundong and said loudly, "I wonder who you are. Why did you save these fox demons and fight against King Zhou?" It would have been better if he hadn't said that. As soon as he said that, Li Yundong immediately stared at him with bloodshot eyes. In Li Yundong's opinion, these people were all accomplices, and maybe they had a way to break the formation. He shouted angrily and rushed toward the 24 golden immortals. "Hand over the method to break the formation, or all of you will die." Hearing this, the 24 golden immortals were so angry that their eyes turned black. F***ck, we were kind enough to help you fight King Zhou, but you hit us instead? Well, since you don't appreciate it, I'll kill you too. In an instant, the 24 golden immortals took action one after another. Many powerful magical weapons hit King Zhou and Li Yundong together. Chapter 9:19. The 24 golden immortals attacked angrily, covering the sky with magic arts and dazzling magic treasures. Li Yundong and King Zhou were shrouded in it at the same time and disappeared in an instant. However, Li Yundong and King Zhou were not ordinary people. One was a reincarnated wisdom king who had been tempered by thunder and fire. He had gone through the heavenly tribulation once and several times. His Jinshin was extremely condensed, and his Naiden Zhenqi was vigorous and majestic. The other was an emperor with the strength of 9 oxen. He had been fighting all his life and had never met a rival. He was the emperor with the highest cultivation in history. One of them held the Akalanatha seal and faced the enemy with the immovable Akalanatha, while the other punched and kicked with unparalleled divine power. No matter what magic the other side used, Li Yundong just made a big handprint, which could not be moved by the wind, and immediately shattered it on the spot. King Zhou's response was even simpler. His punches and kicks had the power of heaven and earth. Even if the magic treasures of golden immortals were hit by his punches, they would buzz and tremble. They would be sent flying far away, not daring to approach for a long time. The two of them dealt with the siege of the 24 golden immortals in mid-air. They turned their heads angrily and attacked the 24 golden immortals. They attacked at the same time, and the 24 golden immortals were almost defeated. Many of them fled far away on the spot. Only Xueqi and other top masters of golden immortal strength could hold on and fight on the spot. The 24 golden immortals were scattered by Li Yundong and King Zhou, and the pressure on them was immediately reduced. They immediately punched and kicked each other, fighting back and forth. The more Li Yundong fought, the more anxious he became. He kept looking at the palace on the ground, wishing he could tear the golden magic formation into pieces. As he fought, he shouted angrily at the 24 golden immortals who were scattered in the distance. "Hurry up and remove this magic formation. Su Daiji is not inside. Why did you do such a cruel thing?" LV Shang snorted and said, "They are also her kind. Everyone has the right to kill demons and ghosts." Li Yundong was furious. Bullshasterisk, what are you riding on? Wouldn't they be demons and ghosts then? What grudges do they have against you? LV Shang only sneered. Xueqi also said in a deep voice, "The formation has been activated and the deities are out of the way. Don't waste your time." Li Yunyang was furious and crazily attacked the 24 golden immortals. Unlike King Zhou, he didn't know how to split himself. As soon as his yang spirit scattered, he immediately chased some of the weaker golden immortals around. Seeing this scene, King Zhou laughed out loud and also chased after the 24 golden immortals. However, he was slow. After chasing excitedly for a long time, he couldn't catch up with any of them. He immediately became angry again. He turned his head and glared at Li Yundong with a pair of big eyes. In his heart, he still felt that Li Yundong was a better opponent because he dared to fight with him head-on. Thinking of this, King Zhou turned his head and hit Li Yundong again, blaming all the unhappiness in his heart on Li Yundong. Before King Zhou met Su Daiji, he was indeed a wise king who was good at both literature and martial arts. Just like Emperor Xuanzong of Tang before he met Yang Guifei, he was also an enlightened king. But people always change. In the later period of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang, he became extremely muddle-headed. Not only did he steal his son's wife, but he also never went to the mourning court. He changed from a wise and powerful king to a muddle-headed old man. The same was true of King Zhou. After he met Su Daiji, he thought that he was invincible in the world. His character slowly changed. He became arrogant and headstrong. Except for Su Daiji, he didn't listen to anyone else. Later, he killed Baigan, imprisoned GZ, built the Palace Deer Terrace, and built the notorious Jiuqi Forest. Finally, he gave the Zhou people a reason to rebel and a righteous reason. At this time, King Zhou still didn't think that it was his fault that the people in the world rebelled. Just like what Emperor Chongzhen said before he hanged himself on the coal mountain with tears, "I am not the king of a subjugated country, and all the ministers are subjugated ministers." King Zhou had been headstrong and self-opinionated these years. He was used to repaying kindness and enmity. Although it was a matter of life and death, if he was a little scheming, he would know that he should unite with Li Yundong to defeat the 24 golden immortals first. But King Zhou would rather vent his anger first. "No matter whether you are good or bad, I will fight you first." As he pestered endlessly, Li Yundong's attack was blocked immediately. King Zhou was good at strength. No matter what kind of change or magic power his opponent had in the world, he only had strength. But for a master like him, the one who could restrain him the most and give him the most threat was also an opponent who was good at strength. King Zhou attacked Li Yundong indiscriminately, which made Li Yundong, who was in a hurry to save King Zhou, mad. He gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. Furious, he slapped King Zhou backhandedly and shouted, "You're courting death." As soon as they fought, their bodies shook again. Li Yundong flew backward, and King Zhou also took a few steps back. Then he laughed and said, "Good, good." At this time, he saw that a golden immortal next to him wanted to sneak attack Li Yundong, so he also punched him backhandedly. A fist energy hit the golden immortal like a cannonball, sending him flying dozens of meters away. He laughed and said, "Shameless villain, don't try to sneak attack me." The 24 golden immortals were immediately furious and concentrated on attacking King Zhou with all their strength. But as soon as they surrounded King Zhou, Li Yundong attacked again. The three forces were entangled in a mess, and it was difficult to distinguish between them. The situation suddenly became extremely tense. At this time, Su Chan, who was trapped in the magic formation, was moaning in pain. She felt as if an invisible mountain was pressing on her back, and her young spirit was almost ground into powder. She could only barely raise her head, trying to see Li Yundong, who was besieged in mid-air through the thick walls of the palace. Her eyes were full of hope. She didn't want Li Yundong to save her, because as a fox spirit, she naturally knew how terrifying and powerful this Howren force was. She knew that although Li Yundong was Wisdom King, he could not shake this magic formation. This magic formation was like a huge furnace, covered with a tripod. The inside was burning with alchemy fire. The outside was extremely hard, but the inside was burning hot. Su Chan could not cope with such burning supernatural energy at all. She felt that the power of her young spirit was getting weaker and weaker. In the darkness, death was approaching step by step. The chilling breathing and footsteps made her despair. At this moment, Su Chan only hoped that Li Yundong could leave her behind and quickly leave this terrible place with Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao. Don't lose your life here because of her. Su Chan's divine sense gradually became a little fuzzy. Slowly, her eyes darkened, and she didn't even have the strength to look up. Her eyes drooped down little by little, and her mouth wriggled gently. She seemed to be murmuring in a low voice, "Yundong, leave me alone. Go, go." The mystical silver fox, who was also locked in the magic formation with her, was sitting cross-legged with her hands pinched together. Her brows were tightly furrowed, and her face was full of pain. She was burned to the point that her whole body seemed to be melting. If it weren't for her amazing cultivation, her soul would have been destroyed at this time. But after all, this was a special magic formation that was specially designed to restrain the demon fox clan. The mystical silver fox endured it for a while, and finally, she couldn't bear it anymore. She groaned in pain, tilted her body, and fell to the ground. She fell to the ground, her black hair scattered, and she was extremely embarrassed. However, the mystical silver fox still looked at Su Chan unwillingly. She knew that she still had a chance to live. The mystical silver fox stretched out her hand in pain and slowly crawled toward Su Chan. Every inch she crawled, she almost exhausted all her strength. She gritted her teeth and shouted wildly in her heart, "I can't die here. I'm the mystical silver fox. I can't die like this." The mystical silver fox crawled to Su Chan inch by inch. She slowly reached out her hand and put it on Su Chan's arm. Her Xueqi surged toward her, trying to merge with Su Chan's soul and young spirit. The moment the mystical silver fox saw Su Chan's two golden foxtails, she understood that Su Chan was the real body of the heavenly fox formed by her other soul and two spirits. However, this soul and two spirits had been wandering in the world for too long. Slowly, the fox body had cultivated its own soul, spiritual power and human body. It had become another fox demon, no longer a pure clone of the mystical silver fox. When the mystical silver fox knew about this, she didn't make it public. She wasn't sure how sincere the relationship between Li Yundong and Su Chan was. She was afraid that Li Yundong, the reincarnated Wisdom King, would turn against her at the critical moment like in her previous life and destroy her real body of the demon fox. Then she would cry without tears. Moreover, after so many years and so many reincarnations, her real body of the fox demon had long had an independent soul and divine sense. If she rashly merged with it, it would definitely cause a strong backlash. Therefore, she could only wait for a good opportunity. An opportunity for Su Chan to be alone. However, Su Chan had always been inseparable from Li Yundong. Even if she wanted to do it, she had no chance. It was not easy for her to wait for the opportunity. But it was at the moment when she was about to die. The Xueqi of the mystical silver fox flowed continuously into Su Chan's body. At this time, Su Chan only felt a vast power surging towards her. She was like a traveler who had fainted from thirst in the desert. Suddenly, a clear spring was poured into her mouth, and she immediately woke up. When Su Chan saw the mystical silver fox, she immediately understood something. She shouted and shrank back. "What do you want to do?" At this critical moment of life and death, the beautiful face of the mystical silver fox suddenly became extremely ferocious. She let out a shrill roar and used the last of her strength to pounce on Su Chan. Su Chan gritted her teeth and fought desperately with the rest of her courage. At this time, she was an eight-tailed fox, and she had exchanged yin and yang qi with Li Yundong. When she fought with her life on the line, she couldn't be underestimated. What's more, both of them were being burned in the magic formation, and their cultivation quotients were greatly reduced. If they fought with each other, it would be difficult to decide the outcome for a while. The mystical silver fox and Xueqi were entangled for a while, and then she felt that her spiritual power and Xueqi were being consumed even more by the magic formation. In despair, she couldn't help shouting at Xueqi, "Are you crazy? You are my real body of the heavenly fox. Why are you resisting me?" Xueqi said angrily, "I am me, and you are you." The mystical silver fox wanted to go forward again, but she was already powerless. She couldn't help but say in despair, "Are you willing to die in this place? Only when the two of us join hands can we escape together." Xueqi was so weak that she gasped for breath, but she still sneered and said, "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Do you want to trick me and seize my soul and divine sense like President Chow?" The mystical silver fox's thoughts were seen through. Seeing that Xueqi was stubborn and that she would die together with her, she couldn't help but think in despair, "Does God want me to die? I, the mystical silver fox, have been dominating the world. Am I going to die here today?" Chapter 9:20. Xueqi and the mystical silver fox were constantly losing their Xueqi in the magic formation. After fighting with the mystical silver fox for a while, the little girl became weaker and weaker. Everything in front of her seemed to be shaking violently. The palace, which had been surrounded by steam, seemed to have turned into a volcanic crater with white smoke. The boiling magma below burned her to death bit by bit. Xueqi hoped that Li Yundong would ignore her and run away quickly, but she also knew in her heart that Li Yundong was not a man who would leave her and run for his life. If he were such a person, how could she have fallen in love with him and followed him? At this time, Xueqi City was in chaos. From time to time, there were deafening explosions of magic spells and angry shouts, as well as the terrible sound of fists hitting flesh, in the sky of Deer Terrace Pavilion. When Xueqi heard this sound, her eyes were full of worry and anxiety. She bit her lips and didn't notice that there was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. She thought with fear and anxiety in her heart, "How is Yundong? So many golden immortals are beating him. Is he injured? What about Sister Zhou Qin? Can she escape? What about Wan Hongling and Lin Miao? Hurry up and run. Hurry and run. Fight with King Zhou and all the immortals in the sky. You can't beat them." Xueqi wished she could shout these words out loud, but she no longer had the strength to do so. Right now, it took all the strength in her body to even lift her eyes. She lay limply on the ground, staring at the big hole that had opened up on the top of the palace. Looking out from this big hole, although she couldn't see Li Yundong fighting with King Zhou and the 24 golden immortals, the sky was colorful at this time. Although it was already night, it was illuminated by the colorful divine light from time to time, as if it was daytime. The little girl lay motionless on the ground and looked at the sky blankly. She wanted to but was powerless. Even speaking was an extravagant hope. The mystical silver fox was also lying beside her, panting heavily. She still struggled and said, "Do you want to die like this at such a young age? Listen to me. I'll only borrow your soul to escape. After I escape, I'll leave. How about that?" Xueqi didn't seem to hear it. She just looked at the sky weakly. At this time, a loud shout came from the sky. "You are going against the heaven, and you are bringing about your own destruction. Take this." With a loud boom, the Deer Terrace Pavilion Palace seemed to collapse from the tremors. Many rubble fell from the shattered palace, but the moment the rubble came into contact with the golden Dharma array, it turned to dust as it fell from the sky. Xueqi was shocked, and her eyes became even more worried. Who is this? He looked so powerful. Could Yundong beat him? The mystical silver fox had been observing Xueqi carefully, unwilling to give up. At this time, she observed her expression and keenly captured what Xueqi was thinking. She gasped and said, "Do you know who this person is? Pagoda-bearing Heavenly King. Do you really think that these 24 golden immortals are fake? Don't be silly. They just wanted to preserve their strength, so they didn't use their full strength. Now that they were in a hurry, they would kill Li Yundong. Do you really want to see him die in front of you?" This sentence struck the softest spot in Xueqi's heart. Although the corners of her mouth had cracked from the scorching heat, tears still slowly rolled down her cheeks. Of course, she didn't want to see Li Yundong die. She didn't want to die either. The little girl hadn't been with the master enough. The two of them were sweet and loving, and the days were too short. There was a long time in the future. How could she die like this? Tears rolled down Su Chan's eyes. Her heart ached like a knife. If possible, she must persuade Li Yundong not to chase after the mystical silver fox. They could live their lives in peace. There were so many capable people in the world. Why did they have to take care of these things? The little girl was very sad. She turned her head with difficulty and said in a trembling voice, "Will you really help Yundong after you go out?" Seeing that Su Chan was finally shaken, the mystical silver fox was ecstatic. She raised her hand with difficulty and swore to the sky while panting, "I, the mystical silver fox, have never broken my promise. I swear to you that if I go out, I will never fight with the reincarnated Wisdom King." Su Chan shook her head slightly and struggled to say, "You can't hurt him. Otherwise, I won't let you live a happy life." The mystical silver fox saw that her life was hanging by a thread, but she still cared about Li Yundong. She couldn't help admiring Su Chan's chastity and determination. After she nodded with all her strength, Su Chan slowly closed her eyes as if she had used up the last bit of her strength. The mystical silver fox didn't dare to delay any longer. She gritted her teeth and turned into countless golden clones in an instant, drilling into Su Chan's body. As soon as their souls came into contact with each other, there was a buzzing sound. It was as if a bomb had exploded in the magic circle. The original 8 foxtails under Su Chan's body gradually grew a golden foxtail. Then, she changed into the real body of the fox demon bit by bit. The fiery red fur on her body slowly turned white, but when it reached the tail, the newly grown white foxtail and the original 6 white foxtails gradually turned into a golden foxtail. This was the real body of the heavenly fox, which the mystical silver fox had relied on to be invincible in the Chinese cultivation world. At this time, the white fur of the mystical silver fox was soft and smooth, like silk. Her eyes were blood red, as if the sea of blood in hell had condensed and compressed into a ball, like thick blood that could not be melted. The mystical silver fox finally recovered all her strength again. In her ecstasy, she couldn't help raising her head and letting out a long roar. Although the golden magic circle was powerful, it was only set up for the 9-tailed celestial fox of this era. The mystical silver fox was a great master of the fox demon race that had not appeared in the world for thousands of years. Her real body of the 9-tailed celestial fox was enough to allow her to resist the erosion of the spiritual energy in this magic circle. It was not like before, when she had just entered the magic circle, where she had been suppressed to the point that she could not flow any zhenqi in her body. After a long roar, the mystical silver fox raised one foot and stamped on the ground. With a crack, a huge hole appeared on the ground of the palace. Then, her figure flashed and she got into the crack. The mystical silver fox drilled into the ground. When she came out of the ground again, she had already broken out of the magic circle. As soon as she came out, she took a deep breath greedily and stared at Li Jiandong's back with a fierce light in her eyes. But as soon as the killing intent rose in her heart, she suddenly heard a voice buzzing in her mind. "After you get out, you must not hurt him." This voice shook the mystical silver fox's forehead. She was shocked. She knew that she had just merged with Su Chan's soul and had not completely merged. She naturally knew what she was thinking. The mystical silver fox snorted and said, "Don't worry, I won't trouble him. He's lucky to meet a silly woman like you. Let me tell you, all the men in the world are unreliable. You are so infatuated with him, but he may not be so infatuated with you." At this time, Su Chan did not respond in her mind. It seemed that only when the mystical silver fox wanted to kill Li Jiandong would her consciousness wake up. The mystical silver fox chuckled. She looked at Li Jiandong unwillingly and said in a low voice, "Let me expose the true face of all the men in the world for you. I'll let you die for him." Just as she was about to step forward, Li Jiandong also heard a long roar. He turned his head and saw a 9-tailed celestial fox with white fur and 7 extremely enchanting fox tails standing in the air, staring at him. Li Jiandong's mind raced. He was a very smart person. At this moment, he understood what had just happened. His heart sank, and a frightening thought arose spontaneously. It's like this. Li Jiandong's eyes immediately turned blood red. He pounced on the mystical silver fox like crazy and said, "What did you do to my Chaner?" The mystical silver fox shouted angrily, "Akalanatha, don't be so ungrateful. If I hadn't combined with her, how could I have escaped from this magic formation? Do you expect me to save her?" Li Jiandong trembled all over. He was shocked, angry, frightened and frightened. The most terrible thing that had been buried deep in his heart had finally become true. He hissed in shock and anger. "Hurry up and give her soul back to me or I." The mystical silver fox laughed wildly and said, "Or what will you do?" Li Jiandong stopped talking. He instantly thought, even if I can defeat the mystical silver fox, what if I attack too hard and hurt Su Chan in her body? Li Jiandong was so afraid that he was trembling with anger. At this time, not only was he extremely shocked and angry, but the 24 golden immortals and King Zhou in the sky were also shocked. They had never seen such a nine-tailed celestial fox. Su Daji was originally the leader of the Fox Demon clan. She was famous for her beauty in the heaven realm, but she was not good at magic power. But at this time, the nine-tailed celestial fox in front of her was releasing an amazing power. This power was extremely terrible, even more powerful than any of the golden immortals present. King Zhou looked at the mystical silver fox with wide eyes and couldn't help shouting, "Who are you? What's the relationship between you and my beloved concubine, Daji?" Almost at the same time, Guang Chengzi in the sky also said in a loud voice, "To Shan, for the sake of your clan's meritorious service in destroying the Shang dynasty, why don't you come back quickly?" The mystical silver fox had been scheming against others all her life. How could she not know that the 24 golden immortals were afraid of her power and wanted to trick her to go there? When she went there, they would slowly deal with her. Since ancient times, the group in power had been best at this. First, they would coax them with kind words, and then they would slowly deal with them after they gave in. It was the same in the human world and in the heaven realm. The mystical silver fox was not willing to be fooled. She laughed angrily, and her 9 golden fox tails twisted in the air like golden flames. "You hypocritical guys, don't play this trick with me. Today, I will let you know how powerful I am." She turned her head and shouted at Li Yundong, "King Ming, do you want to see your little lover? Come with me." After that, she let out a shrill roar and pounced on the 24 golden immortals. The mystical silver fox's strength was outstanding, and her magic power and magic were unparalleled in the world. Her heavenly fox real body was almost immune to any magic treasures. As soon as she entered the field, the 24 golden immortals were in a hurry. When Li Yundong heard the last words of the mystical silver fox, his heart skipped a beat. Although he didn't understand what she meant, he had a faint glimmer of hope in his heart. Although he knew that it was slim, he still gritted his teeth, pinched the Mahamudra with both hands, and blasted it toward the golden immortals all over the sky. King Zhou was stunned when he saw this, and then he burst out laughing. Well, you lowly people of Chan School also have such a day?" He also shouted and pounced on them. The 3 of them were all top masters. This time, the 24 golden immortals were beaten to the point that they were no longer in the mood to fight and scattered one after another. It was not that they couldn't beat them, but that the 24 golden immortals were all afraid of each other. They had ulterior motives and cherished their feathers too much, so they refused to use their full strength. Naturally, they were chased around by Li Yundong, the mystical silver fox, and King Zhou like ducks. Li Yundong and the mystical silver fox chased after Guang Chengzi and Lu Shang's group. King Zhou was slow and fell behind after chasing for a while. He wanted to chase after them again, but he saw a person flying up from the city. The person was Grand Tutor Wen. Grand Tutor Wen shouted at King Zhou, "DXN, my king, don't chase after him. It's almost midnight. Don't wait. I have to be busy with other things later." Chapter 921. It wasn't that King Zhou didn't want to chase after them, but he really couldn't catch up with them. He had been stopped by Grand Preceptor One for a while, but Li Yundong and the others had already disappeared. He looked at them with hatred and turned to look at Chowga, who was in the sea of fire. He gritted his teeth and said, "The Western Zhou dynasty is hateful. They deserve to be killed." After saying that, he angrily rushed towards the city. Li Yundong and the mystical silver fox chased after the 24 golden immortals and beat them up fiercely. Each and every one of them were already famous figures, but at this moment, they were being chased by 2 unknown figures all over the mountains and plains. At this time, they really missed those powerful magic treasures that once belonged to them. Guang Chengzi was so embarrassed that he flew into a rage. His most powerful magic treasure, the Shenyuan sword, had been given away. If the Shenyuan sword was still there, How could he be chased around by these two unknown people? Most of the other golden immortals were the same. Their magic treasures were either given to their disciples or destroyed in the battle. At the moment, there was no good magic treasure to suppress Li Yundong and the mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox had been suppressed in the magic formation before, so she had been holding back her anger for a long time. Moreover, she didn't know why, but when she saw the immortals all over the sky, she felt an inexplicable anger in her heart. She wanted to kill all these immortals and then kill her way up to the 9th heaven. That would make her feel good. She chased after them, and Li Yundong had to help. If he stood by and the 24 golden immortals killed the mystical silver fox, it would be a small matter. If Su Chan was also involved, it would be a big deal. They chased and fled all the way. Lu Shang, who was riding on the deer, was annoyed. As he ran, he turned his head and shouted at Guang Chengzi, "Immortal Master Kong Tong, why don't you use the flipping sky seal?" Guang Chengzi was from Ruzhou, Hunan province. He lived in the stone room of Mount Kong Tong, so people called him Immortal Master Kong Tong. The flipping sky seal was the most earth-shattering magic treasure of Guang Chengzi besides the Shenyuan sword. Yi, Si, Yu. Back then, when Gonggong and Zhuanshu fought for the throne, Gonggong suffered a crushing defeat. In a fit of rage, Gonggong couldn't think straight, so he turned around and crushed Mount Buzhou. After the collapse of Mount Buzhou, Goddess Nviwa was busy mending the sky. Heavenly Lord Yuanshur saw that Mount Buzhou was a heavenly pillar with abundant spiritual qi, so he refined the broken half of Mount Buzhou into the flipping heaven seal. The flipping heaven seal could be as large as 1,000 miles or as small as a palm. The bottom of the seal was engraved with the words, "Flipping Heaven." After refining it into a magic weapon, Heavenly Lord Yuanshur gave it to Guang Chengzi as a protective magic weapon. Guang Chengzi treasured this magic treasure the most and was reluctant to use it unless it was a critical moment. The reason was actually very simple. When cultivators fought, they would naturally bump into each other. Sometimes, if they were not careful, not only would their bodies and cauldrons be annihilated, but the magic treasures that they had painstakingly refined over the years would also be broken. A magic treasure like the flipping heaven seal could be said to be a trump card. If it collided with the powerful magic treasure of the other party and was damaged, it would be really embarrassing. When Guang Chengzi heard Lu Shang's shout, he immediately gritted his teeth and took out a yin-like thing from his bosom. He pointed at the mystical silver fox and shouted, "Die!" After that, he raised his palm, and the flipping heaven seal rose into the air. In the blink of an eye, it flew into the air, leaving only a small black spot. But in the blink of an eye, when the flipping heaven seal fell again, it was already as huge as a mountain, pressing down on the mystical silver fox with overwhelming force. At this time, although the 24 golden immortals had been chased away, they were not ordinary people after all. At this time, when they saw Guang Chengzi release his trump card, they immediately gathered together again. Following the flipping heaven seal, they used their magic treasures and attacked from all directions. However, the flipping heaven seal was a top magic treasure that could be ranked in the top 10 in the Chinese cultivation world. It was specially used to hit the top of a cultivator's head. If it was hit, even a golden immortal would immediately be destroyed in body and soul. It was definitely not an ordinary thing. If the mystical silver fox was hit in the head by this magic treasure, she would probably immediately turn into a pool of mud. There would be no exception. When the mystical silver fox saw the flipping heaven seal coming at her head, she was shocked. She naturally recognized that it was a legendary magic treasure from ancient times. In an instant, her 9 fox tails surged toward the flipping heaven seal, which was pressing down from the sky. Just to ye. Calm. The 9 fox tails of the mystical silver fox were the strongest magic treasures in the world. As long as her fox tails blocked in front of her, most of the magic arts and magic treasures in the world would never be able to get close to her. However, in the face of the flipping heaven seal, the mystical silver fox did not dare to be careless. Her 9 fox tails moved out together and headed toward the flipping heaven seal. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The flipping heaven seal collided with the 9 golden tails. One was like Mount Tai pressing down, and the other was like a heaven-defying torrent. They collided with each other and refused to give in to each other. Li Yundong saw that the mystical silver fox was entangled, and the other magic treasures and magic arts were attacking her like water. He was worried about Su Chan and refused to let the mystical silver fox suffer any harm. He immediately pinched the Mahamudra and shot out a golden Mahamudra barrier around him like a cannon, blocking these magic arts and magic treasures. Seeing this, Guang Chengzi was shocked. He pointed at Li Yundong and shouted, "Who the hell are you? How dare you go against heaven? Aren't you afraid of being punished by heaven?" Li Yundong didn't pay attention to him. He gritted his teeth and pinched the Mahamudra to resist the magic arts and magic treasures attacking from all directions. At this time, Zhou Qin and Ruan Hongling also arrived with Lin Miao. They stood on the ground and looked at the earth-shattering battle in the air in fear. They didn't even dare to breathe. Zhou Qin wanted to go up and help, but in such a scene, a master of thunder retribution was even worse than a bystander. If she went up, she was afraid that she wouldn't even be able to get a box of lunch. The mystical silver fox and the flipping heaven seal confronted each other for a while. After all, she was a rare master in the Chinese cultivation world for thousands of years. Although the flipping heaven seal was powerful and psychic, it was a dead object after all. After the first round of attacks was blocked, it was difficult for it to have a follow-up. After the soul of the mystical silver fox fused with it, the zhenqi in her body flowed faster and faster, and her power grew stronger and stronger. She shouted, "Get out of my way!" The 9 fox tails behind her suddenly soared, as if a golden bomb had exploded. Countless golden fox silk entangled the flipping heaven seal. Seeing that the flipping heaven seal was about to be taken away by the other party, Guang Qingzi was shocked. The other golden immortals were also frightened. None of them had expected that the mystical silver fox would be so powerful. The flipping heaven seal was Guang Qingzi's trump card. It could be said that whoever he wanted to hit would be hit. The reason why he was one of the 24 golden immortals was because he had the flipping heaven seal. But if Guang Qingzi didn't have the flipping heaven seal, who would buy him? The Shenyuan sword had been given away, and if the flipping heaven seal was taken away, he would probably be reduced to the deputy leader of the bystander party like Zhenren Huanglong. At this moment, a deafening voice suddenly sounded in the sky. "Ignorant junior, how dare you go against the heaven? Go back to where you came from." At this time, a figure appeared in the sky in an instant. This person was sitting on a lotus throne in the clouds, with 9 halos behind him, each of which was different in color. As soon as Guang Qingzi and the others saw this person, they immediately looked in awe and shouted, "Ancestor, help me subdue the demons." This person was none other than old ancestor Hong Jun. Both of his hands were clenched in the air, and he slowly pulled them apart. His arms were like mud and water, as though he was pulling something. However, everyone could feel that there was an extremely terrifying power between his hands, as though he was holding up a mountain with his hands. The more ancestor Hong Jun opened his hand, the louder the rumbling sound between the heaven and earth became. Not long after that, a huge hole appeared in the cloud above his head. Black mist was swirling in the hole like a black tunnel. Ancestor Hong Jun's voice was deep. He pointed to the void opposite him and shouted, "Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. How dare you touch my world? Show yourself." Everyone heard a loud, ear-piercing sound. In an instant, another crack was torn open in front of ancestor Hong Jun. It was an oval black tunnel. Zhou Qin and the others on the ground found it familiar and were shocked. Wasn't this the gate that Wu Hua had created with the fatality connection and the leakage connection, which could connect to the spirit space? As soon as Zhou Qin reacted, she saw that the 2 black tunnels seemed to sense each other's existence. They quickly resonated and expanded. In the blink of an eye, the 2 black tunnels exploded with a bang, and the world was bright. Even the 24 golden immortals couldn't help narrowing their eyes slightly, not daring to look directly at the dazzling light. Before Li Yunyang and the mystical silver fox could react, their bodies were swept into it. Zhou Qin, Ruan Hongling, and Lin Miao were also swept up by the light and disappeared in an instant. The earth-shattering battle just now quieted down in an instant. Guang Chengzi looked at the scene with tears in his eyes. His flipping sky seal was swept away by the black tunnel. He wanted to do something, but ancestor Hong Jun was his grandmaster, so he didn't dare to say anything. He could only pinch his nose and accept his bad luck. Ancestor Hong Jun sat high in the clouds and said in a low voice, "This time, we didn't get off to a good start. Although there is the disturbance of the future world, King Zhou himself is too powerful, and there is also the Fox Demon. However, from now on, the Fox Demon clan is not allowed to enter the heaven realm again. They are classified as demons. All of us will kill them if we see them." The emperor of the human world is not allowed to touch the cultivation method again. Anyone who violates it will be killed. The 24 golden immortals were awestruck and said in unison, "Yes, your majesty." With a wave of his sleeve, Ancestor Hong Jun slowly disappeared into the clouds. After he left, the 24 golden immortals dared to take a deep breath. Originally, LV Shang thought that he would definitely be able to take King Zhou's head in today's battle, but he didn't expect such an outcome. He sighed and said, "Fellow Taoists, it seems that King Zhou's fate hasn't run out yet." After losing the flipping sky seal, Guang Qingzi was extremely depressed. He sighed and said, "I'm not in the mood to care about the secular world anymore. I'll go back to Kongtong Mountain first. Take care, everyone." He was the leader of the Golden Immortals. As soon as he left, the other Golden Immortals also wanted to disperse and bid farewell. For a moment, only LV Shang was left in the same place. He was stunned for a while and let out a long sigh. Before he left, he looked back at the battlefield and thought to himself, where did these people come from? Could it be that the Fox Demon clan has become so powerful in the future? No, when I go back this time, I must do everything possible to discredit Daji. I must make sure that her clan will be despised by the world like her. With a cold face, LV Shang snorted and finally turned to fly in the direction of Mai. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.